here. Right. There we go. Okay, I believe we're on. All right, I had to make sure all this stuff was right. Can you guys hear me? How do I sound? How do I sound? Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Thank you for hanging and joining. Apologies for being a few minutes late. You barely got me tonight at all. So it has been a very, very, very eventful set of days for me. So I'm a little tired, but we will press through. I'm guessing my sound is good because I haven't heard anybody saying they can't hear me yet. So we'll just go ahead and do some hellos and we will go from there. All right. So what up? Let's see. Razy Yeoman. I think I said that right. Too early. Guess I'll find something to snack on until showtime. Yeah, I know. Oh, he said, good night from the Bahamas. Shout out to y'all in the Caribbean. What up, Alan? What up, Nicole, Maverick, Crazy Homebody Girl, Sarah Yu, Courtney. Oh, Dr. Kamani's on. What up, Dr. Kamani? Make sure y'all check out her channel. It's called Lifting Higher as We Climb Consulting. Really great for conversations around mental health and just the experience of being Black in the workplace and in academia. Tracy, Poison Ivy. Hello, Tia. If I miss you, it's just because I need to jump into these topics. But yeah, it's good to see everybody. So a few things. The last book club session for the book that we're reading, entitled The Color of Money, will be on December 1st at 8 p.m. And we are covering the last two chapters. So that is chapter 7 and chapter 8 of The Color of Money. So far, like I said, the book club it's nothing super formal. So don't feel like you have to be a scholar to join it. A lot of people join in and just enjoy the conversation. And sometimes there's people who haven't even read the book. They just want to be a part of the dialogue because we end up having really great discussions. I still don't like how low I am. There we go. And so that is that. But yeah, book club's been a lot of fun. This is the fastest we've ever gotten through a book because I think it's only going to take 3 sessions to get through this one. But it's because I accidentally assigned like 200 pages on accident, thinking it was just going to be about 60. When I realized what I had assigned to everybody, I'm like, oh, I feel so bad. But yeah, so that's that. As far as the last few weeks, been eventful. You know, it was Howard Homecoming. That was fun. Got to see some folks that I ain't seen in a good minute. I also do a lot of emceeing events as far as like me hosting, you know, people like my humor and stuff. So I've been doing a few fundraising events. One was with Joyful Hands, which is the nonprofit I like to support. And then the other was for a community center out in Virginia. So that's kind of been my few weeks and all. And now, again, I travel in the morning, so I'm tired just thinking about it. But hey, at least I ain't flying. All right. Okay. So jumping into things. Also, to our subscribers in Jamaica, best wishes to you all. I didn't get a chance to really talk about the hurricane when everything was first happening because I just wasn't available to go live. But I hope everything works out for everybody that's there. And for those who are looking to donate, make sure you're vetting the organizations or the charities that are claiming that they're doing the work in the country of Jamaica, or even just all of the regions that were hit by Hurricane Melissa. Sometimes, unfortunately, when there are tragedies, a lot of people use that as an opportunity for scammation. And there will be entire fake organizations and even some of the ones that we once had a world-renowned respect for, Red Cross, that do very questionable things. So make sure if you're donating that the agency or the organization, that it is vetted. And I believe that the government of Jamaica released an official list of charities that are actually on the ground doing the work, right? And like I was saying to somebody in the comment section on the last live, we were just talking about how much I enjoyed Jamaica when I went, because I was just there in the summer, but I didn't go as like I didn't do the resort thing, right? Because I was with people that were actually from there, I got to experience like Jamaica, as if I actually lived there. And that was really, really cool. Getting to do all the things that, you know, we weren't on a resort. So I didn't get the resort experience. So, you know, I was inland and in the hills and in the mountains and with the goats and all that kind of fun stuff. So that was really, really, really cool. And getting to see certain ancestral lands, like my friend that we went with can trace their family back to the 1700s. And getting to know and understand their family tree and just the land that their family owned, and really, really cool experience. And so it was a lovely place when I was there. I'm hoping that they are able to recover quickly. But again, they were hit by a Category 5. And what's been very interesting is I think sometimes when you're coming from privileged spaces, or when you're coming from a place where you look at something like Jamaica as just the tourist resort with the beach, I think people sometimes forget that there are people that live there and they have their own lives and their own livelihood. And I think sometimes there are some who just have a tone deaf approach. Um, Something that kind of annoyed me was I saw a lot of content creators that purposely stayed when they had an opportunity to evacuate because they needed content for their TikToks or their IG lives or whatever. Because it's like, oh, I want to show you what it's like to survive a Category 5 in Jamaica, right? Which I thought was very tone deaf. Because again, even with these people that are staying on these resorts, understand that if those resorts had the luxury to close, a lot of those people could have gone home to their families. So there were a lot of people who had to stay and work through the hurricane at these resorts without even knowing if their family's going to be good or not. And we've seen some disappointing clips with people acting a little too entitled over there, doing the most. And we saw that certain groups were getting blamed for it, and then it turns out wrong group. But yeah, so that kind of threw me off a little bit. And so because even when I went there, something I did feel kind of way about, and it's one of the reasons why I just was like, if I go, I don't want to do the resorts. Something that stressed me out a little bit because we were in Montego Bay was that so many of the beaches were privately owned by the resorts, so you couldn't just go to the beach. And the beaches that weren't privately owned, you had to pay for. Minus there was one beach, I forgot what they called it, but it's like it's technically like a beach you can just go to, but because it's, I guess, not the perfect prime location, it's different because it doesn't have the same kind of waves, and it's kind of water that's a little bit more still. But I mean, you stepping on rocks and stuff, getting to it, but something just threw me off in all of that. That's what I'll say. So much love to them over there. I hope everything works out. Okay, let's talk about this election, shall we? I have a lot of notes. By the way, if you keep seeing me look this way, I didn't write my notes. I have them on my other laptop, so my other laptop is right here. All right. Okay, so lessons that we can come out of this one here, because this has been a very, very interesting election, right? I think a few months ago on these lives, I started talking about the elections that were upcoming. We went down each, list of what state was doing what. We talked about Texas, and they were going to have some things on the ballot. We talked about New Jersey. We talked about the Georgia election. We definitely talked about the New York mayoral race. We talked about Jersey. We talked about Virginia. Like, we went through all of it. So I personally, I figured that Democrats would have a good night, but I didn't realize it was going to be that good of a night for them. I was like, well, damn, folks ain't playing. And I think what it is, you had a massive turnout from Democratic voters nationwide. And I think what's happening, even though I don't think it's 100% locked in, but it was enough for some people to start shifting a bit, where you're seeing the tide, and when I say slowly, like slowly shift. We're still locked into a crazy S-word show at the moment. But I think what's happening is, when you have so many chaotic moments taking place, we have the shutdown going on, right? You have all these people who haven't been paid in a month. We have the loss of SNAP right now. 42 million people don't have their SNAP benefits. We see the president randomly shooting and firing missiles at speedboats in the Caribbean, claiming that these are to attack drug lords. We're literally doing war crimes in the Caribbean, passing it off as protecting the Americans from drug cartels, when it's already been shown that some of these people that they are blowing up are everyday citizens that were just fishing. And even if they were drug cartels, whatever they were, we're not authorized to just go and start striking folks. That's supposed to be an act of Congress, and we're going into different waters, because when it comes to who owns what bodies of water, we're in other people's spaces. So in the same way we have air spaces, there's technically water spaces. We're over there just doing all of that. Now the man wants to go to Nigeria and start a war over there. He wants to start a war with Venezuela. He's having his great Gatsby party while people aren't even have enough money to buy groceries. There's the layoffs. You just saw the October report, which I'll get to a little bit later. ICE is out here just doing Lord knows what, snatching up everything, anything, and anybody, right? All kind of civil rights violations taking place. Economy's falling apart. You destroyed the East Wing, right? And then on top of just the lies upon lies, when people call this man out on whatever's happening and he just gaslights like nothing is an issue, you got the incompetent cabinet. Because if you thought Orange Man was crazy, wait till you meet all the people that's in charge, right? You got all of that. You got the Dole stuff. I think a lot of people are just tired. And so I don't see a lot of what happened as an overall rallying behind Democrats in general. I think it's more of a big FU and a no to the GOP. That's how I'm seeing it as. And where the GOP messed up is they were still trying to use the same playbook that helped them win in 2016 and 2024, which was, again, using the idea of othering different groups of people, right? You spend all day still talking about immigrants, spend all day talking about the trans community, spend all day making everybody to be the bad guy, but not talking policy, not talking about things that people want. And then you can't really stand here and talk about you care about the American people and people's livelihood, but then all of you endorse the Doge cuts. All of you endorse all the grant cuts. You all endorse all the cuts to the programs that actually help the people. People can see through that. And so I think what ended up happening is you had a large demographic of people who said, hell no, absolutely not. Right. And I think those largest pockets came out of the groups that technically are not white Americans, but a lot of the other minority groups in the country, and especially with black folks. Right. Because again, what I will say is interesting is when we have the conversation about the white vote, I don't think they get it yet. The numbers, and we'll go and look through some of the numbers. As far as the white vote, the numbers improved a little bit as far as voting no against some of this nonsense. But in all reality, the numbers didn't shift that much. And that's the reality of the fact that, again, the old guard still remains. There's just going to always be a pocket of Americans who will never vote for any kind of change if it means challenging the old guard. And the old guard means white people first, everybody else take a back seat. So people will continue to vote against their own interests if it means that somebody else will suffer, if it means that they'll have a little bit more than the other person. So even because of how racist is constructed in this country, even when people have literally nothing but a grain of sand in their hand, they will feel empowered because for them, it's like, at least I ain't black, right? At least I'm not one of the Mexicans. At least I'm not a trans person. At least I'm not this. At least I'm not. So they will continue to hold on to the illusion of feeling empowered with nothing tangible, all because of how something makes them feel. And so, unfortunately, there's going to be a pocket of the U.S. that's just always going to be that way. Even when you look at what happened in New York, I'll start with New York. New York was interesting because towards the end, once Eric Adams dropped out, which we knew he didn't have a shot. The minute he wasn't running as a Democrat anymore, was running independently, that means there's not the same funding, there's not the same anything. He was done. He already had corruption cases and stuff going on. He got all in buddy with Orange Man as his way of getting his pardon and everything else. So New York wasn't putting him back in. They were done with him. They were sick of Eric Adams by the time we got to about 2022. Sick of him. So when it really got down to the wire with Cuomo, and I keep saying this man's name wrong. Let me actually get this right so I don't say this man's name wrong a million times. I want to say it's Mamdani, but I just want to make sure I got it right. Because I don't want y'all to yeah, Mamdani. Okay, so I was right. All right. So Mamdani, right? So when it gets down to Cuomo, man, oh my God. Mamdani and the Republican guy that got shot a few times and goes on all the podcasts and stuff. When it got down to those three, it was interesting to see the fear of possibly having somebody who wasn't a white Christian male be the mayor, and specifically somebody who has, a lineage that ties to two different continents and is also not a Christian but a Muslim. Like when I tell you they started throwing everything at the wall, you started seeing the 9/11 posts on X where the people were like, "Oh, it's called Mom." Somebody said Mom Dami. Okay, thank you, Brooke Smith. Mom Dami. So it's Dami, right? Mom Dami. I was gonna say MJ, but we're already gonna talk about Michael Jackson a little bit later. So, all right, we'll just say the winner for the sake of time. I want to make sure I get these people's names right. No disrespect. So anyway, you started seeing the fear mongering, and what they ended up doing is, what did they do? They started pulling out of the 2016 and 2024 playbook. Instead of going after maybe the policy that they didn't like that he was offering, they start going after him personally and what they think he's associated with. Now all of a sudden he's a terrorist and he hates this and he hates that and he's going to be bad for New York and ISIS is coming and they ran with it. But I think a lot of New Yorkers are like, nah. Because that doesn't work in a place like New York where it's such a diverse city. It's one of the most diverse cities in the world. So that idea of othering populations doesn't quite work in New York City because everybody and everything lives there. That may have worked in some small town out in South Dakota that was rural, but in a city like New York where you're used to seeing everybody and everything all the time, that doesn't fly. And so that was interesting. And then it was bad when Cuomo was getting an endorsement from Orange Man and all the Orange Man's people. That was telling you everything you needed to know. And as far as Cuomo, I know that when it was the primaries, people were feeling some kind of way about the black vote because black people tended to vote for Cuomo and didn't really go in for the current winner. And like I've always said before, I think when black people vote, we, in addition to voting for what it is we want, we always consider what we think other folks are going to do. And I think at that moment in time with the current winner, they weren't sure if white folks were going to get behind him, because a lot of times those dream candidates that we love that have everything that we actually want or so on and so forth, we often know that white America is not going to go for it or the groups aren't going to go for it. And so a lot of times we will vote for who we know is maybe not the best person that we want, but we know they're safe enough to get us something without doing a bunch of damage. Cuomo is not a great candidate to me, but Cuomo was familiar at that point in time. And I personally feel Cuomo just ran because he saw that Orange Man was able to get his redemption and get back in office. So he's like, I'm going to do the same thing. And so once the primary was over and it was established that, the winner was going to be the winner, or at least be the main nominee, you saw where the black vote went. And it's very funny, too. I want to say this because, I've seen so many conversations when there's certain groups of people who believe that they are so progressive or so advanced that when it comes to their perception of the black vote, they love to put us in the dummy box and they start using the terms low information voter, uneducated, identity politics, da 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 da. And when it's all said and done, which demographic came out the hardest for that man? Right? Questions that need answers. For all the ones who had so much to say about the black vote and what they thought black folks were going to do, and black folks are holding New York back, black folks were the biggest supporters of the current winner. Stop playing in our faces. Anyway, so that was interesting. And like I said, you even saw the New York Post where they're like, oh, if he wins, there's going to be 1 million New Yorkers who are ready to flee. To be honest, those would have been people that weren't from New York anyway. And I feel like the people that live in New York would be like, good, let them go so the cost of living can go down. I think the winners, what brought him over the edge was the conversation of affordability. And honestly, affordability, I think, is a popular campaign item just nationwide because the cost of living is so high. And so when you're talking about a place like New York, where, some 1-bedroom apartments are $3,000 and $4,000, that's reality. That rings a bell, as opposed to Cuomo spending all his time attacking the winner about him not being a white man or him being Muslim or this, that, and the third. And New Yorkers will die. And it's like, but people remember how Cuomo moved during the pandemic and what happened to all them senior citizens. Like, people remember that stuff. So it was a very, very interesting bit. The part that got me the most, though, was watching an old boy from Fox News up there crying because Cuomo lost, right? That just shows you how strong the racism is, where they already don't like Cuomo because he was a Democrat, technically, but they were like, anything than that other guy. Actually, I have the clip. Y'all know I'd be loving having the clip ready. Let me go to this clip with this man crying because what's his name won. I said, what kind of nonsense? Give me 1 second. All right, let's get it. If y'all can't hear. All right, let me backtrack. Here we go.
Joining me now from the free state of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis, my governor. Okay, I'm literally in tears. I'm having a hard time keeping a straight face, only for this reason. I have really funny friends, and my funny friends are sending me, one is a meme of the Statue of Liberty, sitting down, smoking a cigarette. F it, I'm going to move to Florida. The other one has a picture of Mamdani, and it says, Realtor of the Year in the state of Florida. It's cracking me up.
All right, let me stop that. All right. Wait, I've been saying the name wrong this whole time. Okay, anyway. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, watch it. They're literally on TV crying over this kind of stuff. And it's like some of these folks, like Ron DeSantis, don't even live in New York, right? And somebody like that anchor has so much money that it doesn't matter who's going to be mayor. Nothing will negatively affect him. But again, that idea of holding on to whiteness, just seeing another face in a position of power, got them shaking. It's taking them back to how they felt in November of 2008 when Obama got up in there. They don't want that back. So it's just like, Sean Hannity, please save it, right? And so I just, it's a mess. And I'll say this, going back, because I've seen a lot of people also. Actually, I'm going to save that. No, I'll say it. I was going to save it for later. But even with the conversations where a lot of people were mad at Black Americans because they felt like Black people tapped out and were no longer active, and we really weren't at the No Kings protests, and folks are saying, where's the Black people? Why come y'all aren't here? Da, 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 da. And this is what we're talking about. You guys are selfish, right? And I said, well, based on what I've seen, we did what we were supposed to do at the polls in all of these elections. And it was great that y'all did the No Kings March, but your numbers ain't matching up to the energy of the marches. So unfortunately, I feel like a lesson is still not being learned with white America at the moment, because they allowed us in the room, but they quiet us in the polls, still doing the same nonsense. So I don't know what to say with that. Now, let's shift to Virginia, because that's the one that was the most interesting to me. And by the way, as somebody who lives in the DMV, thank God I don't have to see them ads anymore. If you don't live here, one of the things you got to understand is when you live in DC, you see all the political ads for DC, Virginia, Maryland, and sometimes even West Virginia. And so you get bombarded with political ads all night, all day. And that's just the state level. Then, you know, you get the federal ones too. And so if I had to hear that I am speaking commercial one more time, oh God, that lady. Okay. But what I found interesting too, because now we're just gonna sit on race for a minute. And by the way, as I'm talking about these elections, understand, I've always said this, politicians and people who get elected, these are not revolutionary beings that are going to pull us out of oppression. These are people that either they get elected because they want to maintain the status quo, or they get elected because they're fighting to at least have some element of normalcy where people can at least live their daily lives and have somewhat of a decent experience. That's pretty much what politicians are. I don't see any political winner that would have my same viewpoints of the world ever making it on a big stage and being elected, because that would be deemed too radical, right? And so I need people to understand that, because a lot of times on this channel, when I really start dragging Republicans, folks get mad, like, well, you need to do this. We're not doing that right now. Y'all need to focus on where we're at right now. Like, it's understood, all right? Because folks love the Democratic plantation. And so I don't think Black people are blindly loyal to the Democratic Party, but at the same time, look at what's happening with what Republicans are getting behind. Why would we get behind that? Which goes to my point. So with Winsome Sears, what I found very interesting was a lot of white people were really pissed that she lost. And somehow we got the blame for it. I saw so many posts that were saying, like, you know, Virginia has the opportunity to have the first Black governor. And I'm like, y'all don't even have y'all facts right, because we've already had a Black governor in the state of Virginia. Yeah, Douglas Wilder back in 1990. But again, it's interesting that people love to use the idea of Blackness when it benefits them, right? And so you had everybody just going in about, you know, what happened with Virginia, because they felt like, oh, well, if we can get Winsome Sears out there, Black folks and everybody else will get behind her. And Winsome Sears, of course, got blown out. And so they were trying to get mad, and then all of a sudden use the symbolism nugget as a way to try to convict people for not voting for the Black lady. Understand, I already told you, symbolism doesn't do much. You can't dangle symbolism nuggets in our faces, but you want to endorse policy that actually oppresses and screws people over. People can see through that, right? And it's also very funny that the only time people care about Black faces in high spaces is when it's something as them like operating as a mouthpiece for white supremacy, or doing something that maintains that status quo that white people benefit from. Because anytime there's a Black person or somebody who's not white that literally stands or really stands on their own and backs the community in which they come from and gets behind policy that benefits Black people, they're never on the front stage. White folks run from them quickly, right? They only use this as a pawn, all right, when they feel that there's going to be a leg up. And the only time we really come into the conversation as far as them taking Black people seriously on that other side is when they can kind of weaponize us and use us as a token because they think it's going to get brownie points. That's the only reason we got Herschel Walker. White people would have never got behind him, but because he was running against Warnock, or because Warnock was running, they need another Black person to throw out there. So put him there, and yeah, we'll get behind him, right? And then they try to make you feel crazy for not wanting to support Herschel Walker, the guy that was beating up all his wives and had all this other stuff going on and had no real policy. Lying about being in the FBI and the CIA and got a kitty badge, talking about I got secrets and stuff I can't even tell y'all about. Be for real, right? And the other thing that I always find funny is a lot of times when they have these tokens that they put out there, you never see them again after they lose, right? Because that token has been spent. Where's Herschel Walker? If white America really loved him so much, they'd be advocating and rallying behind him and putting him right back out there to run again, right? You're probably not going to see Winsome Sears anymore. The only reason she got the door to begin with was because she was selected as lieutenant governor because they needed Youngkin to not look as terrible. Because if you remember, for those who live in the DMV, when Youngkin ran, he tried to run as the likable guy next door. Yeah, I have conservative views and stuff, but you know what? I believe in everybody. As a matter of fact, I have a Black woman who's going to be my lieutenant governor. And they ran on that and let that be the imaging that was there. And as soon as they got in the door, right, it was all kind of chaos. It was the CRT hotline and all kind of racist stuff. And even then, people saw through Winsome Sears. Can we remember how we were introduced to Winsome really quick? Where's my yeah, let's go back to the first time we all saw Winsome on a national stage. This would have been back in 2020, right? This is what we were introduced to, right? And so when we're talking about her being able to climb, I've said this on many videos and many lives. A lot of times when people understand that Blackness will not get them in the door in white America, they have no problem. They have no problem grifting. They have no problem shifting over. They have no problem saying the things that they think white America wants to hear. But in addition to that, they become overperformative. They got to really drill it down. They got to really let everybody know that it's like, I'm not like them. I'm one of the good ones. You can trust me. So our very first introduction to this woman is the AR-15, because she means business. And this looks like this is some kind of farm behind her, because I'm just like you, right? And I mean business. And so it was very interesting because so many were saying, I can't believe y'all didn't support the black lady. She was even kind of pulling that string saying, why hasn't Barack Obama endorsed me yet? He told everybody to vote for Kamala, who was the black lady. How come they haven't said anything to endorse me? And again, it's kind of like even when we're talking about the black vote, black voters are not stupid, right? We've seen Winsome Sears' track record. So why would anybody want to get behind that? Okay. This is the same person who told us that we needed to move on from slavery. Let me pull that up really quick. Because I don't know why people have such a seesaw approach with cognitively how they think of black people. They just think we are like one or the other, that we don't have a complex way of looking at the world like everybody else. They think you just got to throw a nugget to us and do some electric slide and then we good, right? And so anyway, Winsome Sears. So going back, and this is a while back, Sears at an interview. This is when she was still initially getting in the door as lieutenant governor. I'm from another country, another culture, but here I am. I see racism as one more hurdle in life. The interviewer says she sees a country that undereducates its children and overtaxes its citizens, a country unwilling to move on from its dark past. Sears, slavery happened, absolutely, and there are some vestiges of it, but how long are we going to go back there? And then the journalist says, well, Virginia has been shaped by centuries of racial trauma from slavery to redlining. Democrats have been talking more about those scars. Sears embodies a fiery Republican response to that. Sears says, go find another victim. Stop it. That's what I say. Let's move on. But there's more before I get into everything. And then in addition to that, she was standing behind all of the gutting of affirmative action. If we remember that, let me go to that link really quick. Right, I just need, because folks were really trying to act like she was down with us and she was one of us and we missed out. No, we didn't. When Black Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, all right, tried to help purge racism from schools, NAACP called her a pawn in white supremacy, right? All right, under fire from everything. Let me just jump to her piece. She starts talking about affirmative action has morphed into something. She pushes back against the idea that she is in any way endangering the interests of Black Americans, saying that affirmative action was a first championed by Republicans, and they love to do that. Republicans started it. They loved it between that and Republicans freed the slaves, and Martin Luther King was a Republican. They do that all the time. And that the goal was to give everybody opportunity to prove themselves on their merits, regardless of race. She maintains that the original intention was to facilitate equal opportunity. Don't give the white candidate the better opportunity. Don't give the Black candidate the better opportunity, she said in an interview. However, now affirmative action has morphed into something else. It's morphed into a quota system, she says. In fact, it's so blatant quota system of nature of affirmative action today that there's been multiple lawsuits filed by qualified candidates being rejected from higher educational opportunities for their race in the name of diversity. Take the Harvard case, for example. And so she goes into all of that and she starts talking about true equality. But long story short, gutting of affirmative action, she was cool with it. Even when people told her this is going to disproportionately affect Black people in education, so on and so forth, doesn't matter. We were all afforded the same opportunities. They ain't got no problems. Y'all got to move on. But it doesn't stop there, because then in addition to that, it doesn't help that she's literally aligning herself with the people that are working towards the detriment of Black Americans in real time. So Vivek, right? They campaigned together. Now, Vivek is no longer a member of DOGE, but Vivek initially with Elon was one of the somewhat co-founders of what you call the Department of Government Efficiency, right? Now, remember, DOGE, this is the movement that has fired all of those federal workers. This is when we're talking about them 380,000 plus Black women that have been fired. A lot of them were federal employees. When we talk about the gutting of so many guardrails that protected American citizens from all kind of things, whether it be standards of emissions with the air quality from factories, by gutting the EPA, gutting USDA, gutting the FDA, gutting the Department of Education, gutting literally every division and federal agency in the United States that had some element of purpose to make sure that American citizens are always protected. So all the guardrails, she said they were doing great work. Let's campaign together. People can see this. And living in a space like the DMV that has a large Black population, whether you're in Virginia, DC, or Maryland, everybody here right now knows at least 3 or 4 people that currently aren't working. As far as Black folks, we all got a friend that lost their job either in April, February, or September with those federal layoffs. That doesn't even include what's happening with the private sector. But people see and people remember that, right? Let me keep it going. And then in addition to that, when she was kind of called out about what's going on with DOGE, very dismissive, it ain't that big of a deal. In a CNN interview, when asked if she supports Donald Trump's attacks on Virginia's jobs, Winsome Sears refused to answer and dismissed the job cut, saying She wants to talk about real issues instead. When in reality, if you're talking about a place like Northern Virginia, the majority of its economy outside of defense contracting is the federal government. That is a real issue, at least for some Virginians, but it sounds like it's not an issue that she cares about for the kind of Virginians that she approves of. All right. Winsome Sears was caught on tape dismissing and laughing off the attacks on Virginia jobs, saying the media is making it out to be a huge thing. And I don't understand why. Right. And again, remember the 300,000 plus people that have been fired as far as the federal government, that's separate number from that 380 of black women. So some of that is, some of that includes the 380 as far as the black women, but a lot of that is also private sector. But anyway, it's not a big issue to her. Right. She repeatedly refused to call on Donald Trump to stop firing Virginians as he threatened even more mass firings if the Republican-led federal government shuts down. Now we're in the shutdown. And we've seen that they've also had some more rifts and layoffs in some of the departments as recently as 3 weeks ago. As Trump attacked Virginia's workforce and economy, Sears says, I'm supporting what the president is doing. Understand, when you say that, that means everything that he does, you get behind. So when that includes getting rid of all of the grants and the programs that benefit all these different groups, whether it be Black Virginians, limitations with what's happening with academia, pulling the every college institution that he got beef with, he done pulled funding from, all of that, limiting how much money people can take out for grad school, is limiting that to $20,000, because now you want people to go to private banks and get those high interest loans to pay for their education. That's going to chop down how many people continue and further pursue their education, right? All of that kind of stuff. She praised Trump's tax bill, the big, beautiful bill, says it does great things as it stripped 350,000 Virginians of their health care and put at least 6 rural hospitals at risk of closing. So this is all the stuff that she's behind, right? This is all the stuff that she supports, and she loves it because he's doing such a great job. And even after all of that tap dancing, she couldn't even get an endorsement from Orange Man. Not even an endorsement. He didn't even acknowledge that lady. And mind you, he campaigned for some of the other people running in Virginia, but he had nothing to say about Winsome Sears, right? And so it's just like, make it make sense. That's all I'm gonna say. And I will say this too, as far as everything that's just happening, like I don't feel all hope is lost. Because I know it is an S-word show out here and things keep getting worse and getting worse. One of the things that I think we haven't paid attention to is, even when you're talking Project 2025, the initial goal was for everything to be completed in the first 100 days. We're a year in. They haven't been able to do it because they've been running into so many roadblocks and hurdles. And as you keep having these small elections and everything else like that, it continues to chip away at the momentum of a Project 2025. And so that's one of the things that's kind of slowing down what they have going. And now we're even seeing different kind of gains in places that people didn't expect. We saw what happened in Mississippi, where a lot of voters got in there and the Republicans have lost their supermajority in the Mississippi House of Delegates or in the state house. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden it's going to be a major change because they still have a majority, but that supermajority is going. It gives Democrats a little bit more leverage to have a bit more, leg in the fight. You have that going on. When you talk about the Virginia House of Delegates, it was already a Democrat. The Democrats already took it over, I think, in 2022, I want to say, right? Or maybe 2024, I can't remember. But, they gained 10 more seats. The thing about Virginia is every single district swung blue. Every single one. All of them. That tells you people are tired of this nonsense, right? And it just makes things very, very interesting. We saw out of California. Actually, let me pause for California. Do you want to go to that part yet? Okay, yeah, I'll keep going. So then in California, Prop 50, right? Prop 50 was a response to the redistricting efforts in the state of Texas. Again, the reason we keep harping on the conversation of redistricting, and I'll explain it again really quickly, is when you're talking about those federal seats in the House, the 435 seats in the House, and then the 100 seats in the Senate. When you're talking about the districts that represent the 435 seats in the House, that is determined by, one, you're a governor who's going to draw the map, and then the state house that's going to say yes or no. So at the state level, right, when they draw those districts and it gets approved by the governor, that determines the House seats. And so for a state like Texas, when they did the redistricting, because they're able to redraw, because literally, like we said, every district has exactly the same amount of people in it. And so you can draw your borders to do whatever you need them to do to manipulate or shift how many voters that you think are going to vote one way or vote another, put them all in one area. And then you can either create districts that, gain more popularity. Let me rephrase that. You can have districts that vote more in favor for Republicans or for Democrats. That's how redistricting works. Texas decided, after Orange Man told the governor to, the man in the wheelchair, it's not even a redistricting time. That's normally what happens after census, and it happens every 10 years. It's not even really year 5. It is 2025. We're in year 5. They abruptly in the state of Texas decided to redraw the maps, redraw the districts. That would dilute the black vote, give Republicans a possibility of getting new seats in the House. California's response was, well, we'll do the same thing, but the difference is, in the state of California, the governor just can't go and redraw and do anything like that when it's not a redrawing year. Again, California is not supposed to redraw their map for 5 years. That's why Prop 50 was on the ballot. It gave California voters an opportunity to say, hey, do you want to redraw the districts or do you want to leave them as is? Californians had a choice. They said redraw. So now California has, Prop 50 is passed in California. That gives a possibility of Democrats getting possibly about 5 seats from California. That counterbalances some of the work that's happening in Texas. But again, Missouri has also done some redistricting, and there's a few other states that are looking to do so. And so it's going to be an ongoing thing. And I will say this about California's Prop 50. Theirs is not permanent. California is trying to at least say, we recognize that we don't want to do a cat and mouse game of overstepping our boundaries. So yes, we will redistrict for 5 years, but when it's time for the official redistricting again, when we get to census in 2030, it will still have to go for a redraw. So this is something that's a little bit different, where they're recognizing that, okay, we're just going to have to go tit for tat, but we don't want to permanently go for tit for tat. And there needs to be a larger conversation about reform when it comes to districting and ensuring that it is bipartisan or nonpartisan, and that it is fair to the people and not in the hands of corrupt governors or people who are trying to steal away and gut away the voting rights of different people. And this is why the conversation of the second or Section 2A of the Voting Rights Act is on the docket right now in the Supreme Court. And we've already done that on, I think, 2 lives ago, or the last live, where we talked about the state of Georgia and North Carolina and Louisiana. So just go to the old lives. We cover all this stuff. So there's that. What else was I going to jump into? And also, I'd say people got to understand, you're starting to see how much votes actually really matter. Like, have we seen the race out of Georgia? Which, by the way, Georgia also knocked it out the park too, as far as what they got behind. But then in Marietta, you saw the one guy that lost his election by 87 votes, right? There's a few hundred people in this chat right now. Literally, let's just say if everybody in this chat lived in Marietta, Georgia, that would have determined that election. That's how close some of these elections are. So don't feel that you are not included or that you are not important for whatever it is. I always say the local elections are the ones that matter the most. What else was I going to say? Now, I will say my prediction of what I think is going to happen over the next few years. Republicans are going to try to rebrand a little bit and try to have somewhat of a softer image, because the midterms are still coming up. Even though I know they're already going to, Orange Man and crew are trying to find every way to screw that up and snatch that away where there probably wouldn't even be an election. But as far as a safety guard, I think a lot of GOP folks are going to have a softer image. You even see some people right now rebranding. I'm going to do a video on that lady on a different video when I get back from my trip. But you see a lot of rebranding, right? And what's been very interesting is now all the people who've been doing all the tap dancing, the ones that get to be the tokens and the mouthpiece for white supremacy, all of them are down bad because they don't know how to move in this, right? And you see them struggling. So Van Jones, right? He feels that, Mandami needs to apologize to New Yorkers because he said they are afraid. I said he has to apologize. Apologize for what? Because he won? What? Okay, right? Stephen A. Smith is mad about the New York election. He was pissed off because he was mad. If you see the clip, he was going off about the possibility of free grocery stores and the possibility of the buses being free and the possibility of some rent freezes until they can figure out a way to make housing more affordable. I said, for all the wealth that you have, those shouldn't be anything you worry about. But, you're seeing that. You got Candace Owens, who's now saying she regrets telling everybody to vote for Orange Man, and he's just been a disappointment, and so on and so forth. It's rebranding time because everybody needs a new grip. But what I find the most interesting, because I love dragging Vivek, and I'm waiting for these Ohio governor's race results before I really do the video I want to do on him. But let's just go down the line, because when I tell you a lot of people are learning in real time that they are not a part of the party and they are not included in the club, let's tell a story here. All right, let's start here. So Vivek posted a happy Halloween post for, with his kids, he's, his Indian family and everything. The comments under this image, they called this man every kind of name under the book, curry, this, something, that, every racist thing you can think of, right? To the point where I can never pronounce this man's name, Dinesh D'Souza or whatever. He's another one that's a tap dancer and gets on my nerves because he's always in black people's business all night, all day, endorses every element of racism as long as it's anti-black. But now that it's going against the people that look like him, now he has something to say. Look at the abuse Vivek is getting for posting a photo. I think he was trying to say innocent, but whatever. A photo with his boys. This is an issue that the Heritage Foundation and Tucker Carlson have brought upon us. If this continues, I would not be surprised to see mass desertions of blacks. They always call us blacks. You notice that? The blacks, the blacks. You know, so the blacks is lowercase, but he capitalized Latinos. Okay, blacks, Latinos, and other minorities from the GOP. Unreal. All right. So that was step one. Then we get to step two. Right. Oh, this is my other favorite guy. I love to drag this one here too. Then we get to Byron Donalds. Right. Remember, Byron Donalds is a representative in that district in Florida. Most of his district is white, so he has to tap dance for these white folks because he can't ever say nothing that's really about it. Because I always said, when folks do all that over-performative, aligning with white supremacy, trying to act like racism doesn't affect them and do all that stuff, it works until they start acknowledging their blackness or wherever it is that they come from, and white people remind them who they are. So he said, and this is all around the same time, our party has always stood for the Constitution, civil rights, free speech, freedom of religion, and limited government. We will never stand for twisted ideologies of Marxism, totalitarianism, bigotry, and anti-Semitism. We will not stand by as our Jewish neighbors are demonized. Nick Fuentes, that's that dude that talks a lot of trash too. Good boy. They're playing in this man's face, telling him that he is a token. Yeah, you good boy. Like letting him know that we know what you're doing and how you move, and that you are pigeonholed into a space where you have to tap dance and play the role, or everything ends for you. Right? But it doesn't stop there. Then we get to Vivek, right? Because Vivek feels some kind of way because he's like, hey, y'all doing a lot, right? Because hell, he's trying to be the governor of Ohio, right? End identity politics, right? And then look at the responses. End foreigners in American politics. Got a better chance of an Indian finding a toilet. Get the F out of my country. Now, this is the same person who went on a rampage telling us that the ideas of racism and so on and so forth aren't a real thing. People just need to work hard. People need to stop being sensitive. He let Ann Coulter tell him to his face she would never vote for him because he's an Indian. And then he sat there and was like, well, I'm happy that we can have these civilized discussions. That's not a civilized discussion. This lady is cooking you to your face and telling you that you are beneath her and that you will never be seen in the same spectrum that she exists in. And you're talking about it's a civilized conversation. No, she put you in your place and maintain that status quo. And like a sucker, because you know how this works, you couldn't get mad, because if you got mad, that Indian would come out and automatically white folks would remember you're not one of them. And so you had to play into it and act like all was well and that it didn't bother you. And so while this woman sat there and cooked you and told you have all the qualifications that I stand by, but the one thing that stands in the way of what would ever let me even consider letting you have any element of power is the fact that you are not white. And not only are you Indian, but how she said it, she said, you are an Indian, as if an other. There's something wrong with you, right? All these folks, folks just going down bad, right? Hot freaking mess. So we're going to see how a lot of this goes. There's going to be a lot of people start pivoting, shifting from whatever grist they're on. Byron Donalds will have to keep tap dancing because he's trying to run for governor of Florida. And so he has to make sure he keeps them folks happy, which is going to be very interesting because he's going to continue to alienate the demographic that he claims that he is from. And we've already seen how he talked about segregation not being too bad for black folks and the black family this and the black family that. We saw how that went down, right? With his cigar, because he's just so cool. Between that and all that black dye he be using. So it will be a very, very interesting time. But as far as the elections, actually, I did want to pull up just the numbers just to show you like some of the voting patterns of what we saw, right? So let me share this really quick. Again, this is the exit poll, so it's not 100% on the nose, but the reflection of what we tend to see. So if we're talking about Virginia, let me make sure y'all can see my screen. Okay, cool. So when we're talking Virginia, when we go down these lines of race, this is what I was saying. When everybody was doing the No Kings marches and all that stuff, I said, okay, all right, let's look at the races here. As far as because again, people used to always say, well, black folks, they only vote for folks because they're black. No, black people have discernment. And my other thing is, y'all said y'all were done with DEI and that people needed to earn things on their merit. So is it DEI or not? Because now you wanted everybody to get with Winsome Sears just because she was black. Even though she's already claimed and stated she came from Jamaica, she got a different experience. Hers doesn't necessarily mirror ours, but she had the gall and the nerve to tell us to get over the slavery that we endured, right? Disrespectful. And again, they had slavery in Jamaica and the Caribbean, everywhere else. Everybody had a system of slavery. So it's very tone deaf to go into another space and try to downplay the experience of what happened to another group of people when the experiences to an extent mirror. They're just in different places. But for some reason, you'll set it where your oppression was greater than ours, and y'all need to get over it because I need my opportunity. Nonsense. So anyway, white men, 38% went against, Spanberger's the lady that won in Virginia, right? 38% support for Spanberger, 54% from white women. We get over to the black folks, the ones that where they say we don't be around, and that we needed to be at the No Kings protest, right? We weren't at the protest, but 89% of black men, 96% of black men. What's going on here? This isn't this No Kings energy. Something ain't adding up here. This group wasn't at the rally. This group was. What's going on with these numbers, right? The Latino community's gotten very interesting. The women, I feel like, get it. The men are still struggling, but they're trying, but at least they got the numbers, so on and so forth. That was the Virginia governor's race. Let's go to, I don't need the other ones. They're all about the same, right? If we go down, they're all similar numbers here. And FCNN, by the way, but they just had this exit poll, so I'm using it. Similar numbers, right? White men just ain't budging, right? This is a demographic where they ain't ever budging. Nope, absolutely not. Right? I'm gonna go to a different state. Let's go to New York. Right? New York is a little bit more interesting because the votes are split a bit more when we're talking by race. Now we know and Donnie won, right? White men still ain't budge. White women, and I'm also going to kind of mirror this with what Cuomo is, because Cuomo is a bigger part of this conversation as well. Because really, Silva was not really in this conversation, and Cuomo is not a Democrat, but he would be what you would call Democrat adjacent. So that's interesting where the vote goes, right? So white men decided Cuomo. White women almost splitting hairs here, but they said we'll go with the Indian guy. Black folks, right? Kind of split a little bit too, but still they decided, hey, we're going with Mandami. Like there's an overabundance, right? Same thing with the other groups. Interesting. Just pay attention at the demographic that keeps dropping the ball every single time. Shifting gears here. I want to go to, was that New Jersey? Oh yeah, let's go New Jersey. Okay. New Jersey governor's race. Same thing. No, I want it by gender. Give me the gender. Give me the genders. All right. Again, at the No Kings rally, they was putting on the dinosaur costumes and spending all the day making the signs and everything. But when it comes to the polls, numbers don't be adding up. 92% of black men, 95% of black women. Latino men are trying. It's interesting because I'm like, y'all are watching your friends get snatched up every single day, and it ain't moving some of y'all. Like I said before, they don't move as a monolith. The only thing that a lot of them have in common is that they either speak Spanish or they come from a country in Latin America, but that's it. They don't move as a community. They don't move as a collective, and this is why their vote is always split. And what you're seeing with the Latino vote is that it's just returning back to the numbers that existed before 2020, right? It's literally what it's going back to. That's what we're starting to see. These are starting to reflect what we were getting before 2020. Is there anything else I want to show in this? And then Prop 50. This was, again, do we want to redraw the districts and everything else like that? When it said the yes, black men, I was like, okay, black folks, they said, black men said, we're tired of this, 93%. Black women, 89%. Latino men said, okay, go ahead and change it. Latino women, again, almost mirroring what was on the other one. We come back over here. All right, numbers are a little bit better, but still, for all that King's Marching y'all doing, your numbers ain't matching. You got questions out here. Some of y'all need to start talking to your cousins, right? Y'all be the ones having all them rules with no thick politics at the Thanksgiving table because we got to keep everybody comfortable. And that's one of the reasons why collectively we can't depend on y'all for nothing. So everybody else has to have an overabundance to get the things that they want. And so it's almost like that clip of Jon Stewart. For all the accolades they give that man, because, you know, he be giving it to the Orange Man and giving it towards the people that endorse racism and everything, just for him to talk about his racist uncle or whatever, and how the uncle is still loved and it's just a part of the experience. What? You done built a whole brand on being an ally, and now when it's time to actually do the allies' work, well, there's layers to this. Okay, all right, and understand, I'm going so hard politically in this current era because one party is just overtly doing every racist thing you can think of under the book, unapologetically and proud. You now have Nazi groups and swastikas, white nationalists, Klanmen, all of them. They don't even have to hide anymore, right? You got the Patriot Front and the Proud Boys. Understand, a lot of them ICE agents are Proud Boys, and a lot of white men that were convicted for doing whatever hate crimes, couldn't get jobs anywhere. But because ICE is not vetting anybody, they're able to just hire anybody and anything. So you have one side that is just doing everything under the sun. In addition to the racism, destroying the country, selling it off to the highest bidder, privatizing all of the guardrails. We now have what country is going to be building the military base in Montana? One of them countries in the Middle East that apparently we're so afraid of, but now they're building a base in the Middle East, right? You got all this stuff going on, and y'all want to sit here and walk on eggshells, talk about, well, we got to have conversations, and enough with the conversations. We've been talking forever. We've been talking as long as I had this channel, and ain't nothing changed. Things got worse, right? So these conversations ain't getting us nowhere. It's where's the action? And so the action is, yeah, if you got a racist uncle who, endorses all of this and is fine with random people getting snatched up and deported to countries where they've never been. And mind you, it's not just happening to the Latino community. We saw the story with the black guy that got deported to Jamaica. He's not Jamaican. He's never been to Jamaica. I forgot what state he lived in, but they sent him to Jamaica. You see, on top of that, they're sending folks to countries where there's not even what you call like the extradition agreements. So they're getting sent to Rwanda, getting sent to Uganda, all these different places where it will be extremely hard for people to get back because we don't even have embassies in some of these places, right? That's not a deal breaker for these folks, right? The closing of rural hospitals because they're so pressed to gut the Affordable Care Act, that's not a deal breaker for none of these. It's not. What's happening with the attacks on education, none of that's a deal breaker. It doesn't matter. Grocery prices are a shit show right now, in addition to the fact that 42 million people on SNAP currently have to figure out how they're going to eat. That's not a deal breaker. And then you want to still sit here and make the person who has no deal breakers comfortable because you can't call them out. Whatever. All right, I'm going to pause, read some comments, and then we're going to shift on to the next story. How about that? All right. Anyway. Let's see. Somebody said, well, you win some, you lose some. I am speaking. Okay. Herschel Walker is ambassador to the Bahamas. And what has he done over there? We still ain't seen him. Yeah, they give you one of them, what they call them, black jobs. You be ambassador to the Bahamas. You went from running as a senator, right, to ambassador to the Bahamas. That man is over there vacationing. But okay. What up, Santino? Somebody said that lady ain't all the way there. They talking about her upstairs. And yeah, I said Trump didn't even endorse the lady. You do all that cat. You know how embarrassing that is? Where you brown nosing and kissing up to somebody and they don't even endorse you in a race that was actually important, right? And I say important because, again, when it comes to the possibility of drawing districts in the state of Virginia, that ends up becoming in the governor's hand at the end of the day. You would think Orange Man would have done everything to make sure Winsome gets up in there, but he doesn't see her as one of the people that he would want to get behind. And I wonder why, right? Got about 3 strikes: a woman, black, and an immigrant. Hot freaking mess. Ooh, Glam Gal. I got to look into this. Please speak on Cameroon's rigged elections. 92-year-old Paul Biya, world's longest serving president of 43 years, was reelected on October 12th to another 7-year term, sworn in today. We need help. 92? I'm thinking something, but I don't want to say it out loud. Okay, let me research that a little bit more because that's something I don't have the range for. I'm not really locked in and understanding what's happening over there. But if you can give me some more details, shoot me an email, calvinbmichaels@gmail.com, and then I can, or at least where I can look for like actual sources. Because if I get the story from U.S. media, it's going to be so warped and propaganda set up in a way where we're not going to know what's really happening, right? So if you can get me a media source from Cameroon, or at least one of the countries nearby, in that region, because that's right on that little corner. Cameroon is right on that little corner. A few countries above Angola and all those places, but right to the east of like Ghana and Togo and Benin and all those places. So yeah, if you can give me some sources, I would love to go and look into that. Let me see. What up, Avocado Queen? Somebody said Vivek irks the hell out of me. I just wish people could be themselves authentically. In this country, I think there's so many people who feel that they have to turn into something they're not in order to be successful. And then not only do they do that, but then they do it against the well-being of their own community. They will throw their community under the bus if it means a come up. Vivek is somebody who has erased all of his identity in order for it to come up. Where's that picture? Hold on, I gotta find this picture I'll be looking at that I crack up every time I see it. Give me 1 second. I said, now, who are you fooling? Oh, yeah. This is my favorite picture. Okay. It's just like you're doing all this tap dancing, and I'm one of you. They're never going to accept you. They are laughing at you. You are getting cooked every day. Every day. They laughing in your face. What are you doing? Okay? They won't even let Beyonce make country music. What makes you think they're gonna take you as a person trying to be them in general? Please. Anyway, let me keep reading comments here. All right, go on this phone today. Okay, I'll respond to it later. Let's see what else we got here. Oh yeah, Margie Taylor Greene. I'm gonna get her when I get back from my trip. I got some words for her because she is doing a smooth rebrand. When I saw that she was gonna be in the View, I was like, oh, let me watch this because I know Sunny and Joy gonna get her. And she came when they're all poison. I'm so happy that we can have these, conversations and the American people this and that. I don't want to hear that because I've seen your voting record. You voted for the big beautiful bill. You voted for all the nonsense. You are one of the main CRT disciples fighting to get all them books banned and everything. So you don't get to all of a sudden talk a little bit softer and smile a little bit harder and think that people forgot. Just because I don't know what her next step is. I don't know if she's trying to run for a bigger position or what. I know she's up for re-election in her district, but I feel like she has bigger ambitions, like maybe going for the Senate. I don't see her trying to run for president or nothing like that. She ain't been around long enough, and that wouldn't fly. But I could see her trying to run for like a vice president role later down the line, or trying to get in. I wouldn't even say the Trump cabinet right now because she's dragging Trump too. So my thing is, when terrible people start doing good deeds, that doesn't erase all the terrible stuff that they did. You're giving them a reward and a certificate for just doing what they should have been doing to begin with. Not buying it. So yeah, she's been on this press conference and really going off about the shutdown and saying how, yeah, the Republicans could have easily opened the government, but they don't want to use the nuclear option and people are starving. And she's absolutely right. Absolutely right. But that does not mean she has any integrity. And she is not to be trusted. I'll get to her another time. Right? Anyway. Acting like we forgot her and Lauren Boebert used to be like this over there, just interrupting State of the Union speeches and acting a fool. Please. Somebody said it's no fun when rabbits got the gun. Yeah, they are learning the hard way. Somebody said walk it like you talk it. Somebody said we just have to give up on white men at this point. Like I said on the last live, all you need is just to be within the margin. When it comes to these elections, you don't have to have an overabundance of people to just knock it out the park. You just need enough representation to get beyond the margin to win. That's it. That's literally it. Right? So again, when we talk about the 90 million in 2024 that felt like, hey, I can't connect with this, I'm not voting. That's the bigger conversation to be had. There were more people who didn't vote in the election than voted. And so when you really look at the reality, 30% of America put Orange Man in office. So the other 2/3, right, we're collateral to what 30% of the country wanted to do. And so when people sit out because, hey, I can't, nothing excited me to go, or blah, 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 like I said before, I try to think of a bigger picture. It ain't just about me, myself, and I, which is why I always participate. I can't force people to go and do things they don't want to do. But the reality is folks have to start looking at a bigger picture and looking at a long-term, what this means long-term. Everybody lives in the now, lives in the moment, wants everything in their lifetime. We got some folks who, if everything doesn't magically happen in one term, then they're totally done with that person. And it's just, it's weird. Anyway, let me see here. Somebody blissed out said exhausted. All this is exhausting. I hate that sometimes I want to be like, sometimes I just want to be blissfully ignorant and not know any of this and just be a normal person and just have a 9 to 5 and just be in la la land. I can't do it though, especially having a channel. Like even when I be trying to take breaks from the news, by the time I check my Instagram, I got a million messages of all kinds of stories that we need to talk about. I'm like, Lord. Right? It's like, hey, happy birthday, Calvin. Did you see so-and-so got shot in the face? Oh, okay. All right, give me a minute. Hold on. It'd be like a happy birthday card and then the picture of whoever got shot by the cop. I'm like, in the same post? Okay, now I feel bad for having a birthday. Anyway, let's see. Somebody said Terrence Trent D'Arby. Oh, that's a fun conversation. Speaking of Michael, Terrence Trent D'Arby claims that Michael was the reason why his career flopped because he was threatened by him. I wouldn't say that because Terrence Trent D'Arby was having a great run. I think he's got very, very, very confident. And some of the things that he would say at the time kind of started turning people off. And then by the time they were ready to roll out the second project, the buzz wasn't there. And so he kind of got swallowed in that world of Michael and Prince. But I'd have to look into that a little bit more. I know he changed his name and a few other things. I haven't really kept up with Terrence Trent D'Arby like that in a very long time. So I'll go look into that, Maya, because maybe you got some insight that I don't have on here. Or I shouldn't say maybe. Sounds like you do. Let's see here. Somebody said, exactly. Elections have consequences for everyone, even when you act like it doesn't affect you. I just had to choose somebody out the other day about this who lived in Texas. And I was like, there's like 17 or 18 different propositions on the docket. And this person I'm talking about is currently going through a divorce. And I'm like, there's literally a whole piece on there just about parents' rights. I'm like, you might want to lock in and just see what that's about. I didn't look at what the proposition, what it entailed. I just saw the term parents' rights. And knowing them, it was probably some racist thing with trans this and take the CRT out of this. And that's probably what it was about. But in my head, I was thinking maybe it's something to do with parents when they're divorced and rights. I don't know. So I'd have to look. Somebody in Texas can tell me what it was. Anyway, we got to keep moving, y'all. Okay, CC saying it was the second album with Terrence that messed him up. It was horrible. All right, we'll come back to it. All right. Oh, this clip has made my day, by the way. I just need a little comedic humor for one quick second before I get back to the serious stuff. So let me get this clip here because there's just so much going on. Y'all know I love dragging RFK. All right. Okay, here we go.
And creating
Give me one second. Let me share it. I just want you to look at how everybody in the room moves, right? This is what we need to study, how everybody's moving. All right. And action. Oh, wait, I gotta click the video. Okay.
But today you okay? Were you okay? Yeah.
Hold on, we're gonna backtrack. All right. Pay attention to RFK. See, we're going to do this real slow. RFK right here. Remember, now this is the guy that's over HHS. He knows all of what we need to do to make sure that Americans are healthy, that we're not being poisoned. He knows more than what's going on at the CDC and all these agencies that battle pandemics and the NIH and all that stuff. He knows what is needed. And next to him is Dr. Oz, the TV doctor that gave us bad information. This was the doctor that said drinking water doesn't affect what happens to your skin at all. And then it turned out that he had an entire endorsement with some other company that was paying him to put out that bad information so they wouldn't look bad as far as people having too much sugar in their diet. And that's what's breaking people's faces out. Water has no correlation with what happens with your skin. You don't even need to drink it. He said that on that BS or whatever, right? Watch RFK again, right? Now the man passes out.
But today
All right, RFK, step to, well, okay, so you got Dr. Oz going to help because he technically is actually a doctor. Now, remember, RFK has no medical background in anything. His background was law, right? I'm getting out of here. F that. I said, what? Now how you gonna run off? You supposed to be the human health services guy. Like you better do something. You give him some Tylenol, some bear meat, some heroin, whatever you normally do. How you gonna run off, right? Any other time, he got all the mouth in the world. Then cleared up out of there. Jetted out of it. Let me play it again. I'm going to do it one more time because, I mean, scary. You're supposed to be so strong. Remember, because he be taking the pictures in the gym, shirtless and all buff and swimming in the Potomac River and all this other stuff. First one to run.
And creating high-value jobs. But today...
I mean, business here.
Okay?
Right.
Were you okay?
Goes to help. Oh, I'm out of here. Oh, and then look at the president. Trump just standing there looking at him. Not moving. Trump was just glad it wasn't him. Trump, do something. Say something. A mess. Like, you know what this reminds me of? Can I do a quick story time? I need some comedic humor because I can't be sitting in all this dark stuff all day. So this gives me a memory. For those who listen to the podcast, you're getting a preview of like 7 episodes from now. So at the center, there was this one day, right? If you don't follow the channel like this, I used to run a community center with kids, right? After school program. And so it was downtime, right? The kids are not there. And so I had a former kid who was now in between that era of graduating from high school and trying to figure out what they want to do with college. So they had got into University of DC and they really wanted to stay in the dorm because they didn't want to stay with their parents anymore. So they had come to the center to use the computer to try and get the application for the dorm. And so at work, it was just me. It was Ava, who was my number 2. If you listen to the podcast, she's the number 2 person I work with, my program director. And then there was the guy, Mr. John. Mr. John is like this older white man who necessarily didn't work at my center, but worked in the organization, and they had him rotate to different centers. So it was his day to come to the center. Now, Mr. Johnny ever did no work. Like he would sit in one spot. You couldn't depend on him for nothing. If the kids went outside, he couldn't be outside in the sun too long because he would burn. Mind you, he claimed he was Cherokee. I'm Cherokee. Like one day we were having this discussion with the teens about race and systemic oppression and all that. And well, as a Cherokee, okay. And he don't look like nobody's Cherokee. I was like, oh, I really want to look at them blood quantum laws. I just want to see something, or Dawes laws. I just want to see things. I need some confirmation, right? Anyway, so Mr. John, right? You can't depend on him for nothing. So at work, Ava was at the computer in the corner. I'm on the computer with the former student, and we're looking at the University of DC webpage. And then Mr. John had went all the way to Roy Rogers, which was nowhere near the center. I'm like, how did you get all the way to Roy Rogers? But anyway, he had Roy Rogers, and he had this milkshake. And so I'm talking to the girl, and then we find out, unfortunately, she had just missed the window of when she could have put in the application for the on-campus housing. And so she has epilepsy. And epilepsy is when you end up having those seizures and everything like that. Now, fortunately, she had never had one at the center before. And so I just said, like, man, you know, you just missed it, but maybe we can figure out something. And I just saw her eyes get really wide. So I'm thinking like, oh, no, it's okay. Because I thought she was about to start crying or something. But really, she was starting to have a seizure. And so, you know, her eyes get really wide and she starts shaking and falls out on the ground. And so the computer lab had hard tile floors, like those really hard floors, like the ones that you, like if you go into like a Lowe's or something, they get like that hard floor. And so she's hitting her head on the floor. So I'm rushing, and I rush to get like a pillow to put her head under it and everything. Ava is like calling 911, and I'm like, no, I forgot what happened. No, I made Ava rush to go get a pillow. I was holding her head so it would stop hitting the floor. And I was like, Chris, or what you call Mr. John, I didn't tell the man's name or whatever. I was like, Mr. John, call 911, call 911. He had this milkshake. He had to get that last sip. She said, mind you, the girl is going through it on the ground. Ava is the most dramatic person in the world already. Oh my God, just all over the place. I'm like, I need everybody to calm down. I remember we finally got 911 on the line, right? Because at this point, her seizure kind of stopped, and I had her head in the pillow, and I'm just trying to keep her to just stay in the same place, just relax for one quick second. And I remember, because she hadn't really come to yet, her eyes were still closed, and the dispatch had asked Ava, like, hey, is she breathing? And I remember I put my hand by her nose, like, no, she's not breathing. Oh my God, she's not. I was like, Ava, we are CPR trained. We're fine. Relax. And then just as Ava starts freaking out, then the girl did like a big and then kind of woke back up. And I was like, oh, thank God. But the way I was going to cuss John out that day, because I'm like, the girl is having a seizure and you so pressed to get that last sip of that milkshake. Like, oh, I could have killed him. And then I was paranoid because like, I was scared every time she came to the center. And because I was like, please don't have another one of these. It was a miracle that there were no kids there. Like there weren't a lot of kids. But then I remember she came back to apologize, which was like, you don't have to apologize. It is life. But my heart was pounding because I was like, I was looking for any cue, right? And then I will say she had a second seizure a few weeks later, but that time everybody knew what to do this time. And it was a little bit scarier because the kids were there. But after I had given John the lashing of a lifetime, when that second seizure hit, he knew. Anyway, RFK, you were supposed to help, man. What was you doing? You let old boy fall out. Orange man was just happy it wasn't him. A mess. But anyway, all right, let me see some comments, and then we're gonna jump into the next conversation. Somebody said Cuomo got dogged so bad I thought he was a Republican. Well, he started acting like one. All that racist stuff he was getting behind. Like I said, I don't think he really wanted to run anyway. I don't think it was really about him wanting to make New York a better city. I think he loved the power that he had when he was in charge, and because he stepped down because of all those allegations, I think he didn't feel that element of like being fulfilled or completing the mission. And so that power you have, when it's snatched away, you want it back. And I feel like that was the motive behind everything, because he clearly lost the primary. That could have been a sign to be like, all right, get out of here. But he said, nope, I'll just run as an independent, right? So there's that. Somebody said Grammys took away best country album after Beyonce won a category. They're so petty. Now they got two categories. It's best contemporary country, that's for us, and then best traditional country. I said, y'all, they will change the rules every time we get a little piece of something. Anyway, a mess. Let's see. I said, child, what the hell? Wow, he fainted. That's Dr. Oz. What the F? I used to watch him when I was little. Yeah, that's Dr. Oz. But Dr. Oz is crazy now. He on some nonsense. I used to watch him too, I think in college, but he's, I don't know what's going on with him. Yeah, RFK got up out of there. Ran out of there. You supposed to be the hell. You should have known with all the herbs and spices you be telling us to eat and drink. You should have had some turmeric in your pocket or something to wake him up with, whatever y'all got, since he know everything. He knows more than all the scientists. He done fired all the scientists that were doing the research for cancer and everything. So I figured he would have the answer to how to help that man. Nothing. Ran up out of there. Let's see. Hot mess. Somebody said they all claim to be part Cherokee. Everybody Cherokee. Everybody Cherokee. Everybody. Oh yeah, Mr. John pissed me off so bad that day. It was something, and you know, like when you're drinking a drink and there's not a lot left, and you hear that little. That's the part that set me off, right? Because when he. I said, I know you effing lying. Like, what? Oh, my goodness. What a time. What a time. When I tell you there's a story for every day at that center, like, I'm glad the girl was okay. But man, wild time. Okay. Let's see here. All right, let's keep it moving. Okay. Now we know what SNAP. The judge has just ordered that the Trump administration better find the funds to feed these people. I'm going to go to the article. If I can pull it up, if I can find it. Hold on, let me get past these Winsome Sears articles. All right. Let's go to this one. Okay. Article states. Wait, where am I at here? Okay. Oh, this is a long one. Okay. Judge orders Trump administration to fully fund SNAP benefits by Friday, rebukes Trump. We're not going to read the whole article, but just getting to the point. Federal judge on Thursday ordered the Trump administration to make a payment to fully fund the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program for the month of November by Friday, which is technically or at least on the East Coast, in an hour and 15 minutes. People have gone without for too long. Not making payments to them for even another day is simply unacceptable, the U.S. District Judge John J. McConnell Jr. said. McConnell directly rebuked President Donald Trump for stating that his intent was to defy a court order by saying earlier this week that SNAP will not be funded until the government reopens from ongoing government shutdown. In fact, the day before the compliance was ordered, the president stated his intent was to defy the court order. Why did he say the same thing twice? But whatever. Okay. McConnell last Friday ordered the government to use emergency funds to pay for SNAP in time for November 1st payments to be made, but the administration committed to only partially funding the program, saying they had to save the additional funds for the child nutrition programs. Y'all trying to cut that too anyway. Don't be up here lying. That's all I'm gonna read, but you can see the rest. But yeah, so again, I'm gonna tie this into the shutdown in a second, but I do want to say this with regard to the conversation of SNAP. All right. There's a lot of people who bask in the struggles of other people because it makes them feel that they've done something more. It makes them feel that they've earned their placement in society. And so what we've seen is the lack of empathy for people who are living in whatever conditions or the experience that they're living in at the moment. And one of the things that I want to highlight, because people look at something like SNAP and like, oh, people need to just work and people need to, they need to earn their keep and so on and so forth. And this is the problem and blah, 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 blah. And we can't just fund everybody's lifestyle. I'm trying to find a thing if I had it on here. Oh, I do. Perfect. Okay. I just want to share some stats about SNAP because there's a lot of people who have it misunderstood and are trying to use it as a justification to say, no, they should take it because people are lazy and blah, 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 blah. Let's clear some things up here, right? SNAP targets those in need. Among those participating in the program, most are children, elderly persons, or individuals with a disability. In fact, 86% of all SNAP benefits go to households that include a child, elderly person, or a person with disabilities. In addition, about 92% of all SNAP benefits go to households with income at or below the federal poverty line. SNAP recipients represent different races and or ethnicities. 37% white, 26% black, 16% Asian, 3% Native American, 2%. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. 37% white, 26% African American, 16% Latino or Hispanic, 3% Asian, 2% Native American. All right. 16% of participants are categorized as race unknown. Many SNAP households have earned income. Almost 1/3 of SNAP households have earned income, though only 20% of households have gross monthly incomes over or above the federal poverty line. The average SNAP household's monthly gross income is $872. Net income, $398. I'm going to say that again. The average SNAP household's monthly gross, monthly, when we're talking income, $872. Net income, $398, right? The vast majority of SNAP households do not receive cash welfare benefits. Only 4% of all SNAP households and only 10% of SNAP households with children receive benefits through temporary assistance for needy families. That's the TANF program, right? SNAP fights poverty. More than 9% of participating households moved the federal poverty line. Moved above the federal poverty line when SNAP benefits were included in gross income. And 10% of the lowest income SNAP households were moved out of deep poverty, right? SNAP benefit adequacy is a serious concern. About 36% of SNAP households receive the maximum allotment. The other 64% participating receive less than the maximum and are expected to spend some of their income on food to make up for the difference. According to one calculation, the average monthly benefit per household was $258 in fiscal year 2019. So I'm gonna stop there, but like, people have this perception that, you know, folks are laid up, not working, and they're getting $4,000 and $5,000 a month to spend on lobster tail and escargot scallops, right? The best kale, rutabaga, alfalfa, all kind of stuff. And that the people that actually work and have jobs got to get cans of beans and stuff. That's the narrative that's put out there. And so as SNAP benefits were yanked away, I saw so many posts from people who were boasting, and of course they made Black folks the face of it. We saw all of those fake AI videos that were created where it's usually a Black woman, and in the background they got a bunch of kids and running around, and I need my SNAP benefits because it's y'all job to take care of me, and I don't work, and I got 20 baby dad. Like, it was all kind of clips like that floating around the internet, to the point where Fox News even posted one, and I know they did it on purpose. They were trying to act like, oh, we didn't know it was AI. We were bamboozled. They did that crap on purpose. They know exactly what the F is up. And so people love to paint Black folks to be the face of all this, when in reality, this is something that affects everybody. Again, 42 million households are in SNAP or in the SNAP program. And so I think people need to understand that SNAP is not even a major dent in the federal budget when you compare it to what we spend on weaponry and war and everything else. When I tell you that is some pocket change of what they have to spend, which takes me to the shutdown, right? And so, and by the way, one more thing, and to the same thing with that fool at where I saw that content creator that was in the grocery store celebrating, talking about it was going to be empty. All right, do you see the way these layoffs are going, right? You see the way folks are living large on Monday and then got to GoFundMe by Tuesday. Things can happen to anybody, anywhere. So again, folks better learn the art of empathy. I don't understand why, as we come into this era, people have made it a badge of honor to be terrible people. And that's somehow, it's a show of strength by not having any empathy for somebody who may not be doing well. In addition to the fact that the cost of living is high in this country. Even when you do work, you don't have enough, right? And so, crazy. Doesn't make any sense. But getting to the shutdown, we are now getting ready to enter day 38 of the shutdown. And just to reiterate, because we've already covered the shutdown, this is where we're at with the shutdown. Republicans already got to pass the big, beautiful bill that's about to F us all over, right? But in addition to that, they wanted to cut a lot of elements out of Medicaid, Medicare. But the main thing that they wanted to also cut was the subsidies to the Affordable Care Act, right? That was one of the main things that they want to get rid of. And so Democrats are like, no, we're not doing that. Absolutely not. It's not going to fly. And so the setback is, well, then fine, we're going to just shut the government down, because either Democrats, you need to sign on and say yes, or we keep the government shut down. And in addition to that, when there's a shutdown, federal workers don't get paid. Remember, there's like 2 million plus people that are in the federal government. They don't get their paycheck. Republicans are using that as leverage to try to say they don't care about America, or Democrats don't care about Americans. You have all these Democrats who haven't been paid in a month, and you guys are making this a political war. All you got to do is reopen the government by signing the bill. But by signing the bill, that gets rid of the subsidies that make healthcare a lot more affordable for people. The minute those subsidies, because at this point they've expired, and this vote was to just kind of keep them going, people's healthcare is going to double. And even if you are not under the Affordable Care Act, or AKA Obamacare, whether you have your health insurance through your employer, all that, everybody's premiums will go up because the system still has to pay for itself. But this is the part that is the funniest. It's not even funny, actually. It's kind of enraging, right? So when it comes to the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, it's $35 billion every year, right? So over the course of 10 years, that would be $350 billion. And it sounds like a whole lot of money until you realize, let's just stick with the 1 year thing, right? $35 billion a year to fund those subsidies. We just gave $40 billion to Argentina to boost their economy. But then in addition to that, when that big, beautiful bill passed, that is going to pull $4.5 trillion out of the economy over the next 10 years. Let me go to an actual source because I always got some receipts and stuff ready. Let me see here. Which one do I want to pull? All right, yeah, this would be a fun one. So while they're doing all this over $35 billion every year or $350 billion, they had no problem gutting and yanking the $4.5 trillion. Let's just go through some stats here. All right, big, beautiful bill. The law will reduce federal tax revenues on a net by an estimated $4.5 trillion. First issue, right? Mostly due to the extension of, those Paul Ryan tax cuts from 2017. The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, TCIA policies, as well as the new tax cuts. And remember that when they extended this tax cut, the tax cut that the working and middle class got was not extended. But what was made permanent was the tax cuts that the rich got. So they locked in permanently the tax code and the tax cut that the super wealthy got when they extended this 2017 tax cut. We didn't get that same thing. When it was a tax cut in 2017, what the working and middle class got was a $1,500 tax cut through the year. And really, it wasn't a tax cut. They just rearranged how much you withheld from your paycheck and you paid it on the back end. And they told you, oh, you got $1,500 extra. You can go and remodel your kitchen now. And I'm still trying to figure out whose kitchen gets remodeled for $1,500. That ain't nothing but a stove and a microwave. Anyway, the law will increase certain federal spending by $325 billion, mostly on military and immigration enforcement. Like we said, ICE is currently the agency receiving the most federal funding. So this is not stuff that's helping anybody as far as, people eating or having a place to stay. We got to spend more money on the military because we need to get ready to jump into all these wars. Mind you, y'all done kick everybody out the military. You get kicked out the military if you got ingrown hairs. You can't be trans in the military. They don't want you to be gay in the military. They don't want the women in positions of leadership. They don't want anybody that's not a white man to be in the officer positions. And so I don't even know how many people they're going to have left by the time they jump into another war. God forbid we jump into one. But there's that. The law will reduce other federal spending by an estimated $1.4 trillion, mostly changes to Medicaid, SNAP, federal student loans. Remember that piece where it said from now on, $20,000 per year will be the maximum you can borrow for college? Most colleges at this point, unless you're going to some state schools where it's still within that window, cost more than $20,000 per year when you incorporate tuition, housing, and everything else that's there. And so that idea is, again, it makes people have to go to the private banks and get loans to private companies, where, again, now they can really hike up all of those crazy interest rates and everything else like that. And in the event that the conversation of student loan forgiveness ever came about again, private loans through the bank for college are not covered in that conversation. Only the federal student loans are. So there's a conversation with that, minus some of the lawsuits where people went to for-profit schools and got scammed and they got their stuff back. So there's that. This makes OBBB the most expensive law passed by Congress since the 2012 American Taxpayer Relief Act, which cost $4 trillion and made most of the expiring Bush tax cuts permanent, right? Bunch of nonsense. So here we are. This is all the big money that's out here that we're having to witness, right? $4.4 trillion taken out of the economy. A lot of that's going to come from the tax cuts that the rich people get. So this is money that we're losing. We're losing this. We're losing this. We're losing this. This is the one gain that we get. And the gain is going to the military and to ICE, right? While they're fussing and complaining about $35 billion every year to make sure that people's healthcare premiums don't skyrocket, they're still screwing everybody else over. So again, it just, they're playing in your faces. So I need folks to be alert, because they love to have all kind of talking points that don't make any sense. And depending on who you listen to, like a Lindsey Graham or Ted Cruz, you would think that everything is just going fine and dandy and them stupid Democrats are screwing us over and so on and so forth. That's why I said, even with Marjorie Taylor Greene and all that, I don't want to hear about your rebrand, because you voted for the big, beautiful bill. So while you're talking about the constituents in your region that aren't eating right now because you are in technically one of the regions that have a lower economic wealth or are not as affluent, and a lot of them people don't have their SNAP benefits, you can say the speech, but you voted against your own people, the people you represent. Enjoy. Answer to them. All right, let's go to the chat, and then we're gonna keep it moving. Oh, thank you for that, Aisha. Will you talk about how the USDA is telling stores not to reduce their prices? Yes. And so there were a lot of grocery chains that were like, hey, we see what's happening. Actually, I'm gonna find exactly the statement that was sent by the USDA to the grocery stores. Give me 1 second. USDA. All right. I just want the quote. I said, you know what? Let's see. Can I find it? Can I find it? We'll just read the article. We'll read a little bit tonight. I'm sorry. I know some of y'all hate when I stop and read, but reading is fundamental. Let me scroll up all these dang ads. Ooh, Outback. Okay. Give me some Aussie fries. All right. Okay. Snap update. USDA tells grocery stores not to give discounts to customers. All right. The USDA has, and remember, all of these agencies have been taken over by people that are loyalists to Orange Man. So this is not the initial intent of a lot of these agencies, but they have to move in space that, you know, things are aligned with who's in charge, right? Same thing for Department of Education and Department of Energy, all these places. They got to do whatever the Trump loyalists have told them to say. USDA has told grocery stores not to give special discounts to around 42 million Americans who use food stamps. An email sent by the department to stores posted on X says you cannot treat SNAP EBT customers differently than any other customer. The directive comes as benefit payments remain on hold during an ongoing federal government shutdown. Newsweek contacted USDA via its website outside of regular working hours for comment. Why it matters. The SNAP program provides millions of low-income and no-income Americans with federal funds to buy groceries. Payments have been halted as the federal government shutdown drags into the second month, with USDA saying in a notice on its website, the well has run dry. Now, you know that's not even a language of the USDA. You know exactly what kind of folks are running these accounts. And no benefits would be issued on November 1st. What to know? USDA emailed grocery stores around the country telling them not to offer special discounts or deals to SNAP recipients amid the freeze, warning that doing so would violate the program's equal treatment rule. They're literally saying that the people who don't have money to eat right now or have very, very limited funds to eat, you can't give them a discount because that's discriminatory to the people that actually can afford it, right? Can't do that. That's discrimination. You know, we talk about how they love to use certain terms that we fought for with regard to the civil rights movement and everything else back then. Now the terms that we once utilized that gave us some backing, they've now weaponized against us, which is why I say as we move into all of these new eras, anything we stand and fight for, your wording has to be so specific and so aligned where it can't be bastardized like this. Equal treatment rule. The rule requires stores to sell eligible food items to SNAP EBT customers at the same price and under the same conditions as other shoppers. The email said offering discounts or services only to SNAP eligible customers is a SNAP violation unless you have a SNAP equal treatment waiver. Right? And the reason that they're talking about this is, understand, SNAP gives a lot of money to these grocery stores to have the programs that they do. So it helps to cover the cost of what would have been lost by lowering the price or whatever for you know, these different programs. So all of it is tied together. So they're like, yeah, y'all do this if you want to. You're going to lose a lot of funding. And this would affect a lot of grocery stores in rural areas or in areas where there's not as much wealth. Freaking mess. Now, let's just talk about the economy for 1 second because the jobs ain't looking good, y'all. And this is so stressful for, I think, people who are trying to already like switch careers or jump into a new space. It just sucks because it's like the worst time to be trying to change careers right now, unfortunately. All right, job cuts surged in the worst October layoffs in 22 years. Here's why. Dang, this thing got a bunch of ads. Let's see what they selling us. HSBC, okay, that's the bank. Indeed, good luck getting a job with them. Capital One Bank. Donald Trump calls Nancy Pelosi, calls her an evil woman. That sounds like our president. Yeah, they got all these ads. My God, now I gotta pop up. No. Okay. Propelled by cost cutting and growing adoption of artificial intelligence, employers slashed more than 150,000 jobs in October, the largest wave of layoffs in more than 20 years. A report from the Challenger Gray and Christmas said Thursday on November 6th. Seeking to cut costs, technology companies shed the most jobs, followed by retail and service sectors. The outplacement firm found Amazon, UPS, Microsoft, and other firms have recently announced job layoffs. And what could be another sign of a softening labor market, October layoffs jumped 175% from a year ago. right? Remember everybody was stressed about the price of the eggs, and the economy was so bad, and so everybody knew that Orange Man could do it. He could get us out of all the stress we were going through in 2024. Here we are. From a year ago at 153,000, the highest level since 2003, right? That's about 4 presidents ago. Some industries are correcting after the hiring boom of the pandemic, but this comes as AI adoption, softening consumer and corporate spending, and rising costs drive belt tightening and hiring freezes. Andy Challenger, Chief Revenue Officer for Challenger, Gray and Christmas, said in a statement, those laid off now are finding it harder to quickly secure new jobs, which could further loosen the labor market. Job cuts so far this year have soared to more than 1 million, a 65% increase from last year at this time, driven by what Challenger, Gray, and Christmas called the Doge. That's Elon and crew. Vivek got kicked out of Doge, but that's them. Mass reductions to the federal workforce and government contractors, as well as the loss of federal funding to private and nonprofit entities. Year-to-date layoffs have reached their highest level since 2020, when there were more than 2 million job cuts through October. This has been the worst year for announced layoffs since 2009. Gee, what were we going through in 2009? Anybody remember? Challenger said it was surprising to see such a large-scale wave of cutbacks in the fourth quarter when firms typically shy away from announcing layoffs. So again, there is a lot going on, and it's time to lock in and just pay attention to where things are. When we're talking about the economy, a lot of this is self-inflicted, one. And I've kind of already been telling you my thoughts on AI. Unfortunately, AI is here. It ain't going nowhere. Now we got to adjust and figure out how to exist with it being here. My critique has always been that I feel like tech bros always create something none of us asked for. Every time they come out with something, it's always something that negatively affects everybody. Nobody asked for none of this stuff, to be honest. We were just fine, 15, 20 years ago with whatever we had. Nobody was saying, man, I wish there was like some AI thing that could make, I don't know, what does AI all do? It does a bunch of things, but I wish there was a system that we could create that would erase all of our jobs and outperform us and everything, and then we have to depend on it, and then it restructures the economy in a way where only certain people benefit, but a lot of people lose out. Nobody was asking for that. They always giving us something we didn't ask for, right? That's like Elon being obsessed with whatever that thing is where he wants to put the chip in people's brain. Like, yeah, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Damn. Anyway, some of y'all should have said yes to some of these people's prom proposals, because now we all got to suffer because they are still pissed off at being rejected from 30 years ago. Somebody said Snap is a lifeline for so many, and it is for a lot of white folks too. I want people to understand that. They keep trying to make it like, oh, it's just black folks. And to that point, let it be black folks. We didn't have every system working against us, but white folks don't have that same excuse. So let's look at the bigger picture here. Clearly, it shows that system ain't quite working, because everybody in white America should be thriving based on all of the opportunities that they were afforded that we never had. And this is not to try to criminalize or attack different groups of people for not having, but it's just showing you the lapses and the flaws that exist in this system, right? Somebody said Trump hasn't worked hard a day in his life. Man, the man ain't done nothing. All he be doing is golfing. He ain't even good at golf. Somebody said no content creator should be mocking anyone. They go broke faster than anyone. Hey, don't get me started on that conversation. There's a reason I always kept a 9 to 5. There are some who are like, I'm going to step out on faith and do this full time. I got healthcare to think about. I got bills. Okay. So I've always had a job on this channel. So even when racist folks be showing up like, you go get a real job. Oh, I've always had a real job. Like I be working. So I'll be tired by the time we get here. But yeah, kudos to those who are able to do it. That ain't for me right now. And I think with content creation, you never know when your time is up, right? I think I've been lucky to still be around and that the channel is still growing after all these years, because a lot of the people that I initially would have come out with that were in content creation, some have been able to grow and expand into things outside of content creation as far as YouTube, and then some have just disappeared off the face of the earth. Some have lost their minds. Some are no longer with us physically. Like there's all kind of things. So you really never know, where this will lead you. So I've always had a job. I literally let my 9 to 5 fund all of my creative endeavors so that I had that safety net. Because I think it is really scary to put all your livelihood into something like a YouTube. It's nothing for YouTube to say, Calvin, you too radical on here. We're getting rid of your channel effective immediately. And then, for some people, that's the end of their livelihood. How are they paying their rent? I'd be fine. I'd feel some kind of way after all them years of working. But yeah, that's the reality. I think a lot of folks have to have They just got to be able to understand how to read a room. There's nothing funny about people not eating, right? Let's see. Somebody said these same stores are starting to close. Somebody said no food, no jobs, just in time for the holidays. It's a wild time. And now, mind you, this man was handed an economy that was in great condition. 75 months of job growth. 75 months of job growth. It ain't even been a year. We're now losing more jobs than we're gaining. You got inflation is going back up. We're beefing with every country in the world right now. But don't worry, that ballroom's gonna be finished. They're gonna have because did you see the Great Gatsby party he had with the women? It was like life-size champagne glasses and the white women in there just having a time, right? Meanwhile, everybody else hungry. People hungry. They still blowing up boats in the Caribbean and everything else. Don't worry though, they're gonna have a Great Gatsby party. I said, I guess they forgot what happened at the end of that story. Let me see here. Somebody said we are in a recession. I currently feel like if we ain't in one yet, we one step from there. We better all enjoy these last few concerts we going to. Something was telling me like after I go to this Brandy Monica show, that might be the last big arena tour for a minute because I don't know what everything's gonna look like soon. Let's see. Somebody said most people are job hugging, hanging on to jobs they would have otherwise been quit. That is a reality because this, especially in like the DMV right now, because there's been so many federal people that have lost their jobs. The job market in DC is chaotic because there's not a lot of opportunity out here that isn't tied to the federal government. And I think the federal government's still on hiring freeze. So yeah, if you were one of the people in the DMV that lost your job, it's been hard. There's people, like I said, who lost their job back in the spring and they're still trying to figure it out. And listen, landlords or mortgage companies and car insurance, they don't care about your situation. Where the money at? Healthcare. And think about that. You got to think about all the people who may have been in treatment for cancer and everything and lost their jobs and healthcare is compromised. All of that is a bigger picture and a bigger conversation to consider. So it's hard times for people. And again, my concern is all of this was self-inflicted. It didn't even have to be like this, but this is what was selected for us, right? What up, Iron Will? Okay. Oh yeah, yes. All right. So we've seen the networks and how they've been moving, right? We saw CBS, we saw NBC. They've been firing all these black folks, firing all these different people. My thing, like I said before, remember how all these companies moved in this era. A lot of these layoffs and anti-DEI, a lot of these private companies had no connection to the orange man and his shenanigans. They saw the opportunity and hopped on it. And so with all these black journalists that have been fired, just remember how everybody moved in this era. I'm telling you, because when we get to an opportunity to shift things, folks are going to start forgetting. Every single time when it's a crucial moment, people forget what went down, or they watered down things, or, oh, it wasn't that bad. It was. It was. I saw that clip of the black guy that was talking about he worked on, I don't know what TV show it was, but he was a producer for one of the shows on CBS, and how they had told him the whole team had been laid off and fired. But then he discovers that the only people who had been laid off and fired were all the people who were either black or minority, and all the white folks were still there. Like, you're starting to see that in these companies. And one of the things that's also working against a lot of people as they're trying to get new jobs after being laid off or just trying to land a job is now you got the stupid anti-DEI crap where you're seen as a DEI hire, even when you are qualified. And so these are things that are affecting folks. And this was all intentional and it was targeted. So when people try to act like none of this is too bad because it hasn't got to their doorstep yet or it hasn't affected them, just remember how everybody moved in this area. Remember all the companies and the corporations where as soon as the signal went off, they got into action. CBS, they don't even have any shows that I watch anyway. So there's that with CBS. But Gayle King, you better sleep with one eye open. You better call over to be ready because they about to get you out of there next. You next in line to go. So it's gonna be a match. Julie Chen. Yeah, you didn't already step down from enough stuff at CBS, but Big Brother, all right. Big Brother might not be calling you back either. So it's the reality of what's going on. So many different cutbacks and stuff that are unnecessary. And to me, I see it as a resetting of what we call the old guard. And so in all these positions where people were able to thrive, because you need creativity in these spaces. Even when we talk about the term diversity diversity to me does not just mean somebody who is of a different race or gender or religion. That's one piece of it. But diversity is in layers where if you come from another religion or race or gender identity or sexuality or anything like that, then in addition to your experience of being in that role, it's that experience that contributes to that diversity where you can give an opinion or a viewpoint or an idea or a perspective or a contribution that other people who have never been in your shoes would even fathom or think of, right? That's why like something like A Different World, the TV show. Remember season 1, it was a writer's room full of white folks who, again, they're writing a show about an HBCU. None of them had gone to an HBCU. They couldn't tell you what was going on there. They could only create their perception of what they thought college would be. And so when you watch that first season of Different World, it's not terrible, but you don't really connect with it because it's a very universal college experience based on what is presented. Ooh, this thing's about to turn off. Hold on, let me make sure. How much battery juice is on here? I just gotta write. Just want to make sure I don't. Okay, I think we got enough battery juice on here. I'll just open it in the other thing. But anyway, yeah. And so when we get to season 2, you bring Debbie Allen in, and what happens? Debbie Allen went to Howard, so she can bring her experience of this is what happened at HBCUs. And you notice all the characters shift. They bring in new storylines. They do all kind of different things. The show does a full 180 of what the first season was, and it's a totally different show. That's how diversity works, right? It brings you something different. And for some reason, everybody has decided to run from that, where again, the white male gaze seems to be the one standard that has to be everything. And unfortunately, that is going to work to the detriment of a lot of companies, a lot of corporations, a lot of media companies, where that doesn't represent everybody. And so you can keep trying to center everything on one demographic of people. That's not going to fly. And so they'll learn the hard way. All right. Let's go to the next story here. Can I get something happy? Let's see. Well, no, not yet. Okay, let's get to Orange Man and all of a sudden this new obsession with Nigeria. So he makes this post and he's talking about, sorry, I'm just trying to make sure this other laptop don't turn off. So, we don't have money for SNAP apparently. The government ain't open, but now we got to get ready to send troops to Nigeria. And his reasoning is because Christians are being persecuted in Nigeria and being attacked. Now, I want to clear up one thing. There are groups that are being killed and slaughtered in Nigeria at the moment, but not for the reasonings that he's painting. So let me go and pull up one of these articles, and then we want to talk about something a little bit bigger, because the narrative has been Islamic extremists are terrorizing the Christians there, and we got to go over there to protect them. And I'm like, you don't even take care of the Christians in this country. Y'all claim to be Christians, and you let people starve. Right? You're snatching people and splitting families up, and people are literally teaching at a daycare, and then here comes ICE to go and snatch away folks, and y'all are perfectly fine. All y'all sleeping perfectly good at night. All this is great. Y'all done shot. You saw the one protest where the priest got shot in the head with the rubber bullet by the Iceman on the roof. I don't want to hear about no Christianity, nothing. All right. But anyway, so let me actually go to an actual article that's actually clearing right here. Al Jazeera, right? No Christian genocide. While human rights groups have urged the government to do more to address unrest in the country, which has experienced deadly attacks by Boko Haram and other armed groups, experts say claims of Christian genocide are false and simplistic. All the data reveals that there is no Christian genocide going on in Nigeria. Bulama Bukarti, I think I said that right, a Nigerian humanitarian lawyer and analyst on conflict and development, told Al Jazeera, this is a dangerous far-right narrative that has been simmering for a long time that President Trump is amplifying today. It is divisive. It is only going to further increase instability in Nigeria, right? He added, explaining that armed groups in Nigeria have been targeting both Muslims and Christians. Emphasis again, targeting both Muslims and Christians. They bomb markets, they bomb churches, they bomb mosques, and they attack every civilian location they find. They do not discriminate between Muslims and Christians, right? Data by the ACLED, a U.S. crisis monitoring group, backs this assertion. The research shows that out of the 1,923 attacks on civilians in Nigeria so far this year, the number of those targeting Christians because of their religion stood at 50. Insurgent groups such as Boko Haram and the Islamic State West Africa often present their campaigns as anti-Christian, but in practice, their violence is indiscriminate and devastates entire communities. I want to stop there because there's a bigger conversation to be had. What does Nigeria have? that could benefit the United States? Can we get to that question? What does Nigeria have that could benefit the United States? Let's go to some data here, because in the same way that we dissected what was going on with Venezuela, let's talk about Nigeria, right? Nigeria, the largest crude oil producer in Africa, is a major source of U.S. imports. If we're looking at this map here, they're fourth in line behind Canada, Mexico, and Saudi Arabia. And they're, oh, look, next door is Venezuela. Hey, neighbors, right? Now Russia, we can't have too much smoke with them, so we just keep it right here. Iraq, shout out to 2003. Anyway, in 2010, Nigeria exported over 1 million barrels per day of crude oil and petroleum products to the United States, representing 9% of the U.S. total crude oil and petroleum product in imports and over 40% of Nigerian exports. The light, sweet quality of Nigerian crude makes it a preferred gasoline feedstock. More recently, Nigerian crudes have been viewed as potential substitutes for loss of value in Libyan crude. Because remember, this article's from 2010. Remember, by 2010, we was up in there destroying everything with Gaddafi and Libya too, increasing their price on premium global markets. Now, that's from 2010. We need to be a little bit more recent to make sure that our article doesn't shift here. So let's go to this other article, all right? Because again, I care about the Christians so much. Nigeria was once the top crude oil producer in Africa, but disruptions threaten production. What are those disruptions? The ones that we just read about, the 1,923 different attacks on civilians. Those are the disruptions, and it's messing up the oil flow, and it's messing up the money. So now all of a sudden, we need an alibi to get over there and start blowing up some stuff so we can make sure that the oil is where we need it to be so that we can keep our profits and keep everything else. Because in addition to that, US GDP is on a downward trend, and it's about to be in a downward trend where eventually we're going to be behind both China and India. So we need something that's going to keep us afloat, because while we're sitting here firing everybody and gutting all of our universities and cutting back all of our programs and claiming that any kind of diversity is a bad thing, so now we're only going to depend on white men to save us, it ain't working. So we need to jump to the one thing that we know how to do, blowing up everybody's stuff, right? And so for many years, more crude oil was produced in Nigeria than any other country in Africa. However, unplanned production outages or disruptions in Nigeria have resulted in its crude oil production falling below that of Angola, the second highest producing country in Africa. Disruptions remain a significant, persistent downside and risk to Nigeria's crude oil production, according to our updated country analysis brief, Nigeria. And so after decades-long civil war in Angola ended in 2002, their crude oil production grew rapidly, and in February of 2008, briefly surpassed Nigeria's crude oil production for the first time. Production in Angola has remained, for the most part, nearly the same as Nigeria. In 2016, disruptions to Nigeria's crude oil production stemmed from militant attacks on oil export infrastructure, resulted in Angola surpassing Nigeria's crude oil production for more than a year. So again, we got to start looking at the bigger picture. The same man who has never, ever had empathy for any. Nigeria is on they were one of the first countries on the travel ban list, right? One of the first, right? And so I need things to make sense here. You place them on the travel ban list. People from Nigeria are not allowed asylum in the United States because right now the priority are white South Africans who are not coming over here, by the way. And the ones that have come over here are going through hell because it is not the paradise that they thought it was going to be. And they also don't have any real labor skills. And so they're having a hard time landing great jobs. And so they came all the way over here to be poor, right? And so, again, they're using the idea of Christianity because they know a lot of white America and Christian nationalists will latch onto this, even though they don't see Nigerian Christians as one and the same as white American Christians here. They don't see it as that at all. So, again, they can use Christianity as the reasoning and say they're being persecuted for their beliefs because, again, that was one of the main things that they threw out once Charlie Kirk got up out of here. Oh, he was persecuted for his Christian beliefs. And so it's a great talking point for conservatives and for white folks. And it's enough to butter up folks to shut up enough for them to go and start blowing up stuff. Because if they can get to Nigeria and get their hands on that oil production, and there won't be any more disruptions because they'll just go ahead and take out all these different groups, not because they want to help the people of Nigeria, but because they want to exploit what's going on in Nigeria. In addition to the fact that if the U.S. doesn't do it, China's already going to do it anyway, right? So this is technically somewhat of a proxy war where it's a conversation of resources all over again. And so it's the same thing that we saw in Venezuela. Why all of a sudden are we so pressed about Venezuela and we're blowing up speedboats? Because Venezuela has 303 billion barrels of oil. 303 billion. And Venezuela is a small country. And it's easy to go over there and blow up their stuff and take over because who's going to fight? Who's going to fight back? right? Because we already had that very weird doctrine where, again, there was that rule where if you attack a country on the Western Hemisphere, it's automatically an attack on the United States of America. And so there's not going to be too many other countries that jump in, because if they try to support Venezuela in any aspect, to me, or not to me, to the United States, it's a declaration of war, and you're going to get some smoke, right? And so it is going to be a mess there. That's what all that is rooted in. And this is not to take away from what's happening over there to the people that are being affected by the violence. Yes, we can combat the violence. We can do whatever we can to support. But the way that the United States has a history of making these claims and then claiming they're going to help, and then the people end up worse off, it's a reality. Afghanistan is not better off after we went over there claiming that the Taliban was doing all that stuff. We're going to free the people. They're going to be better. They're worse off. Iraq, hundreds of thousands of people killed. We got to get Saddam Hussein out of there. Like, these countries and these places, they got the issues that they have. Please understand, there's not too much of a difference with how Saddam Hussein looks versus Orange Man at the moment. Ain't too much of a difference. The only thing is Orange Man ain't shot anybody in the face yet. But we saw the former Vice President Dick Cheney did before he went on to wherever he's going now. But that's the reality. And so, yeah, use the idea of Christian persecution, get everybody on board, go in there, blow up some stuff, take over, and then you jump into U.S. interest. And now, boom, that secures that crude oil. That secures some elements of the GDP. And let's do the same thing in Venezuela. And then eventually we'll shift over to Colombia and go after them too, because of the drugs that are there. Even though half the people in their cabinet are on all kind of drugs. We can't confirm it, but everybody know. All right, let me find something happy to talk about. Okay, this is better. Thank God. Okay, it's not all doom and gloom around here. Have we seen the story about in New Mexico, right? Where New Mexico has just passed this law where there will be universal childcare that is free for parents, which is amazing. Okay, yes, beautiful. I have that. I just want to give you guys some numbers really quick, because childcare is expensive to those who are parents. So that's why when you're like, how come you ain't got no kid? I can't afford it right now. It's not happening. I want some children though. But with this New Mexico law, what they were able to do was, because of the tax code and a little extra taxes that the super rich have to pay in the state, it counterbalances the difference of what would have been needed to pay for this program. And that's why everybody can have free childcare. Now, I pulled these numbers up when I did the video Dragon Whoopi that time where she was talking about millennials buying houses. So you can go back and watch that video if you want my full, synopsis on the cost of childcare. But just with this stat here, the average annual national cost of childcare for one kid in 2021 was $10,600, or 1/10 of a married couple's median income and more than 1/3 of a single parent's income, according to the report. Childcare costs have increased by 220% since 1990, right? And an additional fact on top of that, the child cost care has increased 115% since 2000, outpacing the rate of inflation at 74%, by the way. Infant care is even more burdensome. It costs more than in-state tuition at public universities in 34 states and in Washington, D.C. Childcare is expensive. So now we're finally seeing people in charge say, let's do something that actually helps the people, right? So boom, childcare. We'll cover it as a state so that you have extra money in your pocket to do other things, because maybe that money can go into savings, which will eventually help with college, or will eventually help for you to get that down payment on that house, or that down payment for that car, or to pay for unexpected expenses. A lot of Americans don't have a savings, right? Even when they think they have a savings or they try to save, it gets swallowed up because the cost of living has gotten so high. Even when you live in a very, very subtle environment and you don't spend a lot of money, you're not eating out every day, you actually go to the grocery store and you cook, it doesn't matter because rent continues to go up. Gas prices are up and down. The cost of a car, like I told you my story, I was never buying another car again. My car was paid off, right? I was loving it. I was just trying. Look, when you don't got a car note, you just drive. The music sounds so much better when you ain't worried about paying for the car note. Man, and then after the car was that car was 10 years old, it started making all those expensive sounds. It started to fight back. You start the car, it starts fighting back with you. Right. And like, dang, it's about to be time to get a new car soon. Right. I was still pushing that car. I was doing road trips. We driving to Delaware. We're going to drive to North Carolina. We driving here, and you just crank the music some more, man. But then we started getting to them conversations of tariffs and everything. And I was like, you know what? Get a car right now, because cars are going to be super expensive in like another 2 months. And this car is not going to make it another 18 months. Just get the car. Now I got a car note that I'm pissed that I got to pay for, right? So now you drive a little bit different when you got that car note. I'd be going over the speed bump softly, because when the car is paid for, you don't matter. Now I'm okay. I don't even blast the speakers that loud because I don't want a speaker to pop, right? You get an attitude when somebody closes your door too hard. Hey, I'm still paying on this. I still got like 50 payments on this thing. Relax. I saw that APR. Oh, I was like, what would it be like to just walk? Right? Man, my God, a freaking mess. All right, let me read some comments here. But yeah, life is hard out here. So a brilliant movement or moving in New Mexico with free childcare. That should be something for a lot of folks. Because again, folks are paying $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, I want to say a month for childcare. And that's for one kid. When you get them families that got 2 and 3 kids, and yes, sometimes they give a discount, but it's crazy out here. And childcare has gotten so high compared to 30, 40 years ago. So yeah, those are things to think about. Those are the policies that people should get behind. That's what these politicians should be doing when they go up here and start lying, talking about how they're helping the American people, but they vote for everything that works against us. You show me something good that you've done, right? Whoever came up with the idea of the free child tax, child care, so on and so forth, you go stand on your podium and you get your flowers, right? That's something that's actually benefiting every single person in that state. And also it's policy that shows that as a person in a position of power in politics, you should not be actively working to disenfranchise another group of people because they didn't vote for you or because they don't share your same politics. That will benefit every single parent in New Mexico, whether they are Republican, Democrat, Green Party, Independent, whatever, right? Everybody benefits. That's how politics is supposed to work. But I don't know what kind of world we live in now. It's a whole lot of nonsense. All right, let's see here. Somebody said the hatred people have for others is crazy. I'm telling you, it's too much effort and energy to be hating people all day. I don't have the energy to be my guard is up with certain groups of people because I know how they move, but I'm not actively waking up every day with rage in my heart against groups of people who, listen, I ain't trying to die young. I'm trying to live long. So I need peace in my heart, right? I like tranquil sleep. Like I like the sun to wake me up with the birds and, ooh, beautiful day. That's how I'm trying to wake up. I ain't trying to wake up pissed off because somebody else, lives next door to me and I don't approve of their existence. That's some nonsense, but people are crazy. Let's see here. Somebody said Gayle said she's done by 2026. I mean, Gayle is in her 70s, I want to say. So yeah, if she wants to retire, go ahead. Let's see. Okay, Thomas King said, our community has a submarine base. The entire town depends upon King's Bay submarine base. We are doing front yard pantries and food drives. Remember how I keep saying like the theme in all of this is discernment and community. Being in community. That's the perfect example where, okay, if our government ain't gonna do it for us and the people that we pay all these taxes to ain't gonna do it for us, we gotta find a way to collectively get it done, right? Because otherwise it's rough out here. And so you're seeing it. So I would definitely say lock in with the food banks. And if you're somebody who's more fortunate and this isn't really affecting you, lovely. So use the pristine experience that you're having to make somebody else's day a little bit better. It's not saying you got to go and spend $300 buying somebody's groceries, but just simple things, even if it's just volunteering at something or just sending somebody a link to a resource that could help them, right? Let's see. Somebody said, bring back UPN. Somebody said, they're anti-everything. Why not Christ? Because really, the Christ that's in the Bible, they'd be anti that too. But they've convinced themselves of a certain image that they want to create of who they think they're worshiping. And that person or that entity somehow is a white nationalist too. And that's what they get behind. And there's a reason why all these churches are segregated on Sunday. I think I talked about it in that Charlie Kirk video I did. But yeah. Okay. Oh, I forgot about that too. BRICS leading. Yeah, Nigeria is definitely one of the BRICS countries. Because remember, you got BRICS coming. BRICS is that currency where all these other countries are getting together. The China's in Nigeria, and I want to say India and other places where they're trying to find a way where the United States dollar is no longer the standard when it comes to global commerce. BRICS is going to be a serious issue for the United States economy if it continues to get stronger and stronger. So, hey, let's go ahead and put Nigeria in their place now, in addition to the oil. Like, all of this stuff ties together. Trump can't even tell you on a map where Nigeria is. Trump would be over there looking at Australia, trying to find Nigeria on there, talk about what's going on over there. Please. This planet can't survive without Africa, and the whole world knows it because they got every resource that all of us depend on. Even some of the clean air that we got, some of that forest and stuff that they still got there while they're sitting there chopping down all the Amazon in South America. Some of that forestry in Africa is keeping our air clean over here. Let's see. I said the pink wig rap lady supported on her platform is very concerning too. I'm just seeing how things play out with that lady right now, so I can get confirmation of something I said a few lives ago that everybody was ready to fight me on. I'm just waiting for the confirmation so I can be like, I knew I wasn't crazy. Anyway, let's see. Somebody said, "Oh my God, these commercials are killing me. They come on when Calvin is cooking, making me miss stuff." You know what they've done too now? Like it used to be, if there was an ad, like I used to be able to see a banner where it said, "Hey, ad coming." I don't see that anymore. So because sometimes if I'm in a good pocket, I'll try to stop it and just miss out on my money because I need to make the point. But I don't see that anymore. So I can't. Well, I guess the only thing I could do is take off the ads. But then there's no revenue that comes from these videos, and it would affect my placement in the algorithm. I'm already sliding in the algorithm because I don't make as many videos anymore. So that would kind of work against me. So I apologize for the ads, but hey. I guess I do y'all a favor because I don't do endorsements. So when you get on my video, we're here. I don't spend 10 minutes talking about what I'm wearing, and this is from something.com and or we're having a great video and having a good discussion, and then I stop and switch. And speaking of Whitney Houston, you guys know that the something beauty hair supply store has wigs that So I guess that's the one plus. Okay. Somebody said 1,200. Oh no. Exactly. Yeah, childcare is not cheap at all. And I think this is a different era in time, especially for millennials and Gen Z, where so many have moved away for their jobs or their careers. And a lot of folks don't have a village when they're raising their children. It's literally them, as opposed to more traditional times, 40, 50 plus years ago, where a lot of families stayed a little bit closer together. And so there was auntie so-and-so and uncle so-and-so and grandma this, and everybody was a bit closer. So you could pass the baby off to babysit and you could still have your date night and stuff like that. Like if I were to have a child right now, I don't have a village here. I got great friends, lovely friends, but my mother's all the way in Georgia. All of my aunts are in different states. I got an aunt in Texas. I got 2 aunts in Georgia. I got 3 aunts in California, 2 uncles in California. Nobody is in DC like that. So things like that I'd have to consider. Yeah. And so, yeah. Okay. Moving on. Oh, let's talk about the actually I want to end on a happy note, so I'll come back to that. I would say anybody that's traveling, be careful. We see that still because we're in a shutdown. FAA is making cutbacks. They're going to cut back on the amount of traffic as far as planes. So there's going to be a lot of flights that are canceled. There's going to be less flights going because, again, all these people aren't being paid. TSA is not being paid. The air traffic controllers and all these people, they're not getting their money. And so people are calling out, rightfully so, because I wouldn't keep going to some place for a month and y'all ain't paying me. I mean, I'm supporting the mission, but no, I need to go and find something else and find some other source of money until everything opens back up. And so it's affecting all of us, where 10% cuts with regard to air travel. And I believe there's 40 airports that have been given the order. And a lot of these are the big airports. These are the JFKs and the Dullases and the Hartsfield Jacksons and the SeaTacs and the LAXs, right? These are the big O'Hares. These are the big airports that are getting that. Because one, it's an issue of just there's no staff, but it's also safety. I don't know the context of what necessarily happened in Knoxville with that UPS plane. I don't know if that has anything to do with communication. It seems like there was just a malfunction with the actual plane and the engine fell off when it crashed and did all that. But we saw the top of the year that literally in the same week where they fired all the people in charge of the FAA and all the people that really make sure that everything is safe, boom, we have that tragedy over DC with the airplane, which is crazy. So everybody, please be careful. Holiday season. What else? Oh, I saw the now we've been talking about AI and music for a good minute. I saw the interview from Gayle King and the lady that is in charge of that artist, which I will not be naming. Remember, there has been an artist that has now come out that is all AI, right? They're not singing their music, they're not writing their music. Everything is done in a software program and put out there. And now what's been very interesting is you're watching radio stations start to get behind it. You're starting to see random ads that are supporting this. And it seems like this is about to be the next move in music. And like I've said, and I've been saying for a year, that is not a good thing. I watched the interview with Gayle King with the lady that's behind the current artist that we're talking about. And she showed us exactly the process. She had poems that she wrote and she said, okay, I have these poems I write about relationships. I put it in the software. I say, hey, make me a song that sounds like this and spit it back out. And then the song spit it out. And she did this in literally 5 minutes, maybe, right? And what was interesting in that clip was like, you have Gayle who's like, you're saying you're an artist. And she's like, yeah, I am. I'm this. But she's like, but you can't sing, right? What does that mean for the people who write their songs and play their songs or sing their songs? And I saw the post that Jermaine Dupri had. Now, he got on my nerves a whole lot. But in this point, he actually was kind of cooking a little bit where he's like, y'all did everything with Milli Vanilli and dragged them for not singing their songs. What is the difference with what's happening now? And my theory, like I've been saying, is labels know and companies know that they can make a lot of money and not have to pay people if software can do it all. We already know that a lot of people who are in charge of these record labels and these corporations, these are not people who are necessarily fans of music or people who understand the business. In the same way, when you're looking at a lot of these streaming services and some of these movie studios, these places are being run by like tech companies. These are not being run by people who are in the arts and understand the arts. These are people who are business folks, and it's business, and that's it. The creative aspect doesn't matter. It's now becoming the bottom line. I always say the element of a good business is, yes, it's profit, but it's also what is the service that's being offered and how does it affect the people, right? So service with a purpose. That's what the music industry at one point was. Now, record labels were still screwing up everybody and so on and so forth, but the product that they put out, there was purpose behind it. They knew that if they're going to charge you $10.99 for a CD back in the day when you had to buy CDs, or $17.99 if it was a double disc, or sometimes even $26.99 if it was a CD with the DVD in the package, they knew they couldn't just give you some BS. Like they definitely knew that, right? And so now we're not even there. My issue with AI, in addition to the fact that now, well, actually, I got a lot of issues with AI, to be honest. But one of the things I think that will affect all of this is, AI only knows what you tell it to do. And I think musically, you're going to start seeing a lack of creativity, because if we start seeing more and more AI artists come out and AI software pushing specifically music, because there are no longer new ideas coming and programming into that sound, the sound is quickly going to get redundant. And eventually, when we're talking about innovation, when we're talking about something that hasn't been done before, you're going to see less and less of it, because the AI is only going to be able to do what it's been programmed to do. So if no new creativity is being created because the labels aren't signing real people anymore, and it's just AI computers talking to AI computers, that sound's going to get redundant very, very quickly. But the other issue is we're now in this realm where everybody wants to shortcut everything. There's just some things you can't shortcut. There's some skills that you can't cut corners on. And it's like, if you are an open heart surgeon, you just can't go to ChatGPT to perform the surgery. You got to go through them years of medical school. You got to go through them years of residency. You got to go through them years of training and crying at 2 a.m. and then your hairline sliding back because you're so stressed out and missing out on all of your 20s and your early 30s. But at least it'll finally pay off when you're about 38 and you finally get the doctor kind of money. Like there's no cutting corners. And we're now coming into this realm where people want to exist in spaces without doing the work. Right? You got tech bros who all of a sudden are interested in music, not because they like music or they're talented. They just want to be the face of something where they don't have to do any work, but they can get the pay. And so now all of a sudden we got these AI rappers, AI singers. You got actual producers who are getting behind Timbaland, getting behind the nonsense. It's crazy and it's wild to me. So even for that same lady that's behind the lady that currently has these hits that are on the R&B adult charts, if you want to be a songwriter, that's lovely. Go and collaborate with an actual producer. Like you're not even having a sense of input on what's happening sonically to your song. If you're putting this poem together and you put it in the software and it just spits out a song, you've had no contribution to the musical arrangement, the melody, the verse, how it's gonna. There's no connection to it. It just regurgitated something you programmed it to do, and now it's being passed off as soulful. And that's what folks want to run by. Maybe because I make my own music, I'm annoyed by it, right? Like, let me see. When I made my first album, it took me 6 months. When I made the hardcover, it took me 18 months. When I made After Yesterday and Before Tomorrow at the same time, it took like 2 years, right? Because I sat and played every note and went back and did all my backgrounds and did this and took this out and took that out. And I'm not complaining because it's one of my favorite things to do. I just make music because I like it. I think people sometimes misconstrue and think that I'm trying to go and get like a big record deal and do the award shows and be at the, that would be nice, but I just make music because I like it. It's a hobby. That's it. That's why I don't even bother y'all with it like that. But it's something that I enjoy. And so what's happening is the art is being erased by profit and quick corners being cut. And folks who don't want to do the work but want to be the face of something. Why would I replace an amazing singer like a Jasmine Sullivan for a computer? Right? Why would I throw away the opportunity of going to a live show and sing an Act Like Infinity song where they're going to be playing their instruments, their sibling, for some reason, when siblings are in a group together, they have the best harmonies just because they don't all sound alike, but there's something that is familiar because they all come from the same parents, right? Where you get these amazing vocals and all. Why would I throw that away we don't even have AI concerts yet. Maybe it'll be holograms for that. Something impersonal, something that's probably thrown together in 5 minutes. Why? And it wouldn't be so much of an issue if we knew that the industry wouldn't be so quick to jump on it and eventually make it not even just the trend, but the standard. But we know that at this point in time, everything is about the bottom line. Everything is about money. And so that is why the art continues to struggle and slip. Look at what's happening with hip hop. We saw the article where it was saying that, for the first time in I forgot however many years, not a single rap song has been in the top 40 and everything else like that. Some of the reasoning behind that is once they realized how much money could be made by jumping into like the Latin music market, as far as like the all the big names, like the Bad Bunny and all of them, how big that global sound was. You notice all investment shifted from hip hop to that quickly, and now we have all these Latin American acts that are globally appealing, and they're getting the top market. And lovely, but at the expense of who, right? They got hip hop out of there quickly. And it's not because people no longer desire hip hop. And I will say that there definitely was less investment in hip hop as far as artist development and A&R, and the music was getting worse. But at the same time, because I am older, I'm going to be biased against what's new because I'm going to just be loyal to what I grew up on. But there was pretty much an effort where you saw the labels cut back on how much they put into rap music, because now we want to shift over to this more global sound because we can get global audiences. We can do all that. Fast forward 3 years, now you got rap songs rap is not even charting. When in reality, just 25 years ago, rap was the largest genre in the United States, rap and pop. Like we talked about in my Music Talk series. In the 90s, it was country and R&B. As we got into the 2000s, it became hip hop and it became pop. And so that is the reality of where we are. I just have to grab my live thing because my laptop shut off. And so watching that interview with Gayle King and the lady, it just shows, I get that she wants her art out there, but I don't even think she realizes that it's a bigger game to be played. And the labels are about to hop on this. You won't even need a record label to do this kind of stuff. You can go and she literally told you the software. There's going to be all kinds of folks that could just go and do whatever. And then we're also going to run the risk of, think of all these entertainers who have passed on. Do you know how many unreleased songs are going to start being released by these artists? How many new Michael Jackson, Prince, Whitney Houston songs are going to start coming out that allegedly they recorded and really it's going to be AI and nobody will be able to tell? Those are things to think about. Anyway, let me read what you guys think here. Thank you, Lil Light 3D. The USPA, oh, wow. The USPA, the UPS plane was 34 years old and was operating, oh, wow, a discontinued craft. The way these companies keep cutting corners, this stuff I be talking about. Ooh. And that was a clip there. I didn't want to cover it on here because it was a little too graphic. But if you saw the clip of that plane and it running through all those buildings and that long trail of fire, like, okay, we can't keep cutting corners, y'all. We cannot keep cutting corners. I'm just telling you. It's starting to become a safety issue. And it sucks that our federal government has cut all these programs that were helping our infrastructure. So I'd be scared to drive on some of these bridges, to be honest, y'all. Somebody said, so sick of these AI videos. If Black people doing crazy ghetto things, it's definitely that too. Well, we keep seeing all these clips that are AI that are showing black folks doing stuff, and we know who's behind it because it's always something that's very stereotypical, and it's either something violent or something crazy, or somebody they doing some crack, like all kind of wild things where these videos are being utilized to portray different groups of folks. Like I already told you that demographic has an obsession with us to begin with, and we're on their minds all night, all day. Couldn't wait. I saw on social media there was that post where it was that white girl that was talking about, being addicted to crack and still working her 9 to 5 every day like it was normal. And somebody was like, "Oh my God, white people did crack." And I'm like, yeah, they were 2/3 of the crack users. But the Reagan administration and our media always made black folks the face of that addiction. When I tell you that demographic swarmed in ready, oh no, you because your community, you guys stealing, they can't wait. Like, don't be mad at me. Go argue with the facts. Like, because I don't argue back and forth on race with certain folks. Like I said what I said, it is what it is. I already did the research. And here's the documentary that's behind it. You go watch that and report back. And ain't nobody reported back. Anyway, where are we at here? Calvin, some people will do anything for money. They certainly will. Somebody said kids born into a culture saturated by AI music will never know the difference. It's going to get harder and harder to tell. Because AI will only get better and get better. But like I said, I think with my theory, I just think creatively it will get very stagnant because there will be if it's going in a direction that it goes in where it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, there will be so many AI acts that are out there and not enough artists that are actually putting new things out there, or those AI systems will just steal from the independent artists that are under the radar and keep, stealing their sounds. And that will be what keeps the creativity going. Because again, there's lots of indie acts that, try to collab with different labels or whatever, or submit songs and then they get their stuff stolen and then we hear about it later on. That always ends up being the thing. Somebody said they also changed the Billboard rules. I just lost the post. My thing jumped. They also changed the Billboard rules. Kendrick and SZA were still in the top 40. They said it was up there too long. Yeah, y'all having too much success. Take it down. Take it down. The one rule that I want them to do with Billboard is there needs to be an element of delineation between the music eras when it comes to accolades. Like I'm tired of seeing, an artist that has been out for 2 years all of a sudden break a record that Stevie Wonder has, and the only reason that record is broken is because of streaming. Like there needs to be distinction. Hey, the physical era, these are the records from the physical era where you had to go to the store and buy the albums. Then there's the physical/digital era. This is the era where we still had physical records, but people were now buying everything on iTunes and Amazon. These are the records that were created then. And then boom, let's go to the digital/streaming era. This is the era where people were still buying things digitally on iTunes and Amazon, but we were starting to come into streaming and there was a little bit of physical. Like there needs to be like 6 tiers of different eras in music to start utilizing, because a lot of the records and accolades from those who were here before 2005, they're just being erased and taken out of the picture by artists because streaming is so prevalent. And my issue with streaming is very hard to vet because you got the streaming bot farms, the stands, when they love whatever artist they have, they will make playlists and put their favorite artist song in the playlist 20 times and have it playing on their computer and then playing it on their phone and then playing it at the office computer, and they got the song playing in 10 different places all at the same time to get that artist stream numbers up. That's not something people could do in the physical area. The most you could do is buy multiple copies of the same CD, but that's expensive. So most people weren't doing that. And that tended to count as one sale when you did that anyway, right? So it's a weird time. I want people to just be fans of music as opposed to spending too much time locked into stats. And that's what's been annoying with the music industry now. Because even some artists are saturated into it where they care too much about the charts and they care too much about being number one at this or number one at that. And it's like they move in a space where it's not even about the music. You are a fan of the stats. You're not a fan of the music. You just want to argue on the internet all day. It's weird. Somebody said data center infrastructure is the only limiting factor for AI right now. And they are finding ways to put these centers everywhere. And those data centers don't even really have that much staff. It'd be these big old giant buildings that are like the size of 6 Walmarts and they got 100 people working there. And most of those people are security. And then people that are just monitoring all the devices. Like it's not even bringing jobs the way they try to paint it out. Somebody said we're living like the Jetsons. Okay, let's shift. I want to talk the Michael Jackson thing. Now, I have the trailer, but I'm not going to play it with audio, and I played this trailer backwards because I don't got time for Michael's estate and all them to shut my video down. But this is the trailer. Let me get this going. All right, I will just talk over it since it's in silence, right? And let's just pray that YouTube don't flag me. All right, So have the trailer for the upcoming Michael Jackson movie that is supposed to be coming out in April. Now, this was already supposed to be out, but they had to push back for whatever reasons. So far, based on what I've seen, looks like they have a great budget. This is Jafar too, by the way. I want to say this is Jermaine's son. Yeah, it's Jermaine's son. It's not Randy's. It's Jermaine's son, Jafar. And apparently this is going to be in 2 parts. So this is the premiere for part 1. And I want to say part 1 stops somewhere either at the end of the bad era. No, because that's got to be dangerous right there. It must stop somewhere around the dangerous era. And from what I understand, the second half would cover everything from maybe like 1993 until his passing. Apparently, from what I've been reading, that's the idea. But I've seen from this movie, Nia Long is in the movie. She plays Catherine. Coleman Domingo plays Joe. It'd be very interesting. We haven't had a biopic in a good minute. I think the last one I really paid attention to and locked in with was the Whitney one when it was coming. By the way, like I said, I played that trailer backwards. So yeah, but I'm guessing, and there's Michael fans that probably can really lock in and give you all the scoop who've been following this movie since day one. That'll be exciting. I can't wait to watch and come back and tell you what I thought. I'm sure the music will be really, really good. It looks like they did a great job capturing like the music video looks, and then Jafar does somewhat favor him a little bit, so that helps. So it'll be a cool watch. We will definitely do a review and talk about it when it comes out. It's gonna be cool. I like it. Hopefully they do right by him. I'm starting to become more of a fan of docuseries, like a docuseries as opposed to biopics, because a lot of times they just haven't been landing. My hope would be, because Jackson 5 American Dream was so good, I hope that they understand that that's the standard that they need to measure up to with this. It can look beautiful. I need the story and everything to align. Because again, Jackson 5 American Dream for millennials, that was something that was on TV so much when we were kids, to the point where it's one of those movies we all knew line by line by line. And you would, every time it came on, you would sit there and watch all 4.5 hours of it every time. So yeah, as far as like biopics, if I had favorite ones, like What's Love Got to Do with It, I thought was done really well. Even though I wouldn't consider it a biopic, Why Do Fools Fall in Love is hilarious. By the way, check out that interview with Vivek on the one podcast where with Lena Waithe, where she kind of talks about all her film roles. That was a really interesting interview, funny to watch too. The TLC VH1 movie wasn't too bad. There was some continuity issues in some of it, but I thought they did an okay job. New Editions series was excellent. That was an excellent one. That was probably one of the best ones out of the modern recent ones. That was really, really good. Really, really put together really well. Who else has a good one? The Natalie Cole one was good too, but it's older. It's from way back when. What else was I'm trying to think of the good biopics, like the good ones. The James Brown one wasn't bad. I think it got a little confusing sometimes with the continuity because they kept jumping from back and forth with the years, but I thought Chadwick Boseman did an excellent job in that one. But we've had some biopics that were not good that have come out. Like, that Aaliyah one, I was like, Lord, I feel bad for Aaliyah fans because hopefully y'all get another movie. Oh, the Selena one was really good too. The one with J-Lo. I didn't watch the Netflix Selena series. I know there is also something coming out on Netflix, which is like a documentary on Selena. I will be watching. All right, I told y'all I was almost fluent in Spanish at one point listening to Selena. But yeah, as far as the ones that weren't good, that Aaliyah one pissed me off so bad. Pissed me off so bad when I saw that. Yeah, hopefully y'all get another one. That sucked. The DeBarge one was not that good either, but I think that was more so just because of budgeting. But they tried. The story was there. It just the execution wasn't as great. Let me not be negative. But yeah, I'm excited to see. The Temptations was really, really good. Ray was excellent. Thank you, y'all who put that in there. Let's see what y'all are saying. Let's see. Actually, let me just read all these comments and keep it moving. Let's see. AI, we're still talking AI. Somebody said yes, the Michael Jackson trailer. Oh, okay, yeah. So Jafar is Jermaine's son. Okay. Now it's no, I'm not gonna be messy. But if you're in the Jackson fanatic, you know where I was about to go as far as Randy and Jermaine. Anyway, somebody said I was wondering if there would be 2 parts of the movie. So from what I understand, they already had their version of the movie, but then I think there was a lawsuit because the movie was initially supposed to jump into all trouble and the allegations and everything, and I think that got pulled, and they had to go and do reshoots and everything, and pickups, and that's where it was decided this will be done in 2 parts. From what I understand, somebody can please correct me because I don't have all the scoop on this, but yeah, yeah. Somebody said American Dream was so good. Release date, yes, 4/24/26. Somebody said New Edition one was pretty great, and the New Edition one was so good that it introduced an entire new generation to them. Like working with the kids, when we always used to do mini talent shows and stuff at the center. When I tell you, every time we would have some group that wanted to do If It Isn't Love, every time. And the same thing happened when the TLC movie came out. I remember going to see them in 2014, and at least 40% of the crowd was under the age 18. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right. But and that was my first time finally getting to see them the way I was elbowing. Look, I got to get in the front, because my parents didn't let me go to the farewell tour when I was 12. So y'all got to move. You got to wait your turn, right? Let the real fans get their moment. Y'all move. Let me see here. Oh, I forgot about the Bobby Brown one. Well, actually, we reviewed it. The Bobby one was, yeah, because it was in what, 2 or 3 parts. That one was pretty good. Only part that pissed me off a little bit was when he was already high as a kite and passed out, and then Whitney came and stepped over him and was dancing because she was feeling. I was like, y'all are so messy. That part pissed me off. Yeah. Somebody said the Liam one was terrible. Yeah. Oh, the Billie Holiday one was okay with Andre Day. Was that Andre Day? Yeah, it was Andre Day. I'm not saying, yeah. The People versus Billie Holiday. Mm-hmm. Somebody said Wendy Williams and Ray were good. Oh, you're talking about her movie about her. You know what's interesting? That was her second movie. She had already done a biopic, but it had never come out. And I think it was because she had just got the TV show. Because in the original Wendy Williams movie, she was played by Robin Givens. I don't know what happened to that movie, but it never came out. Or at least I haven't seen it. Yes, the Clark Sisters one was good. That was a good one. That's the one that pissed me off because Twinkie was so pressed to have that man. And remember, the man didn't have a job at all. And when the mom didn't want Twinkie to leave with him, remember he pushed Monty Moss Clark. He pushed the Clark sisters' mama on the stairs. And I'm like, you don't even work. You don't get to push nobody for free around here. That is not how, that pissed me off. That is not how this works. And I'm not saying you're supposed to have a job to start pushing people, but the nerve to not even be working and milking off your wife, and you gonna push the girl mama. Let's see. Somebody said Notorious was good. That one was okay. I was an undergrad when that came out. Now what was fun, there was a scene where when Biggie and them were still trying to get on, and it shows them being at Howard Homecoming in the movie. And at the time, we were all at Howard as students. And so I remember being in the theater when it showed that scene, everybody started screaming and get excited. So I do remember that. Little Richard with Leon. Yeah, that was okay. That's one of the older ones, too. That one wasn't too bad. Let's see what else y'all have on here. Somebody said, I miss Behind the Music and True Hollywood Story. I do, too. Bring these shows back. Bring them back and just please let me just be one of the producers. Like, man, I'd love to do like a So What Happened on a behind the music scale type thing where I can actually get the people that are around to confirm and interview. Oh, Straight Outta Compton NWA movie. That one was a good one. Yeah, I did like that. I took my mom to see that, which was crazy. She actually came and went and saw it with me. I never thought she would do that. Not Andre McDonald. She's from Broadway. I'm talking about Andre Day, the lady that sings the Rise Up song that they used to play every 5 minutes at every graduation and at any commencement and something with positive energy. That lady. Off topic. Have you been to see Death Becomes Her yet? I have not, and I need to go before Michelle ain't in the cast no more. It's a goal. I need to see that show. I need to see Hell's Kitchen. I still need to see the Michael Broadway show. I'm pissed because I had tickets to the Michael Broadway show in 2022. And then just as I was getting ready to go to the train, because my nose kept running, and mind you, it was like April, I'm like, let me take a COVID test just to make sure I don't have COVID. And then that's when I realized I had COVID. I'm like, fudge. And so I didn't get to go. I mean, I could have been selfish and just went and passed it to everybody, but I was considering the people around me and the people that would have been near me on the train, and then the friends that would have been with me at the MJ show, and then the people in the theater. So I was like, I'll just have to catch it next time. So yeah, and now they've switched the lead, so it wouldn't even be the same cast, but I still want to see the show. Somebody said the Aretha Franklin biopic was good. Because there was two of them. There was the one with Cynthia. I think the storyline in the Cynthia one was better, but I didn't like Cynthia as Aretha at all. And excuse me, sorry, the Jennifer Hudson one. If you could swap the Cynthia Erivo storyline one with Jennifer Hudson, it would have been better. Just for me, I would have liked it more. Cynthia, I just don't think was fit for that role. Great singer, but I didn't see it. Let's see. Wait, don't be whacking the MC Hammer movie. I like that movie. Somebody, they said the MC Hammer movie was a hot mess. I like that movie back in the day. And you know what's so funny? When I still work with the kids, we used to have this session that was kind of like centered in like Black culture, Black everything, where I was trying to catch them up on everything that they missed when they weren't around. And so I remember we watched that MC Hammer movie, and it was so funny because towards the end, where it shows who was supposed to be Tupac, as soon as the Tupac came on the stage, all my teenagers were like, oh, like they cooked that movie so bad. I don't care. I like the movie. It was great when I was a kid. The kids don't be liking the stuff I'd be excited about. Like, they never let me put on Fern Gully. I used to fight to play that movie, and everybody was like, no, Mr. Michael, we don't want to watch. I'm like, y'all are missing out. I'm telling you, you're going to love her. No, them little kids like, I don't want to watch. No, because, you know, these little kids have grown up with 3D animation. So some 1989 looking cartoon, looking all, they don't want to watch that. Even Ava will be like, no, them kids are not watching that. I'm like, okay, y'all missing out. Whatever, I don't care. I still like the movie. But then I'm not even gonna say that movie because y'all like, you showed that movie to them kids, so never mind. But yeah. Let's see. Somebody gotta do right by Aaliyah. That is true. Oh, Halle Berry was good in the Dorothy Dandridge one, Joshua Reed. Yeah, I did like that one. Introducing Dorothy Dandridge. She was actually really good in that. Calvin, do you listen to the LaBelles with Patti LaBelle? Nightbirds is so good. Yeah, but no. I mean, let me see. Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells. Clearly I like their version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. As far as LaBelle, I only know like the big singles. You know, What Can You Do For Me and the Lady Marmalade and all that. I'd have to really get into their catalog. Oh, and Isn't It a Shame? You know, I know like the big singles, but not like their album cuts and stuff. Ma Rainey was really good. Yes, Bryson Fern Gully, the one that had Robin Williams and Tim Curry, and had Tone Loc as the lizard. And that was my movie as a child. Like it's so old too. And then it had Land of a Thousand Dances. I forgot whose version they played. I want to say that was the who sang Show and Tell? Is it Show and Tell? Show and Tell. No, it's not him. It's dang, who sang? Crap. Hold on, Land of a Thousand Dances. It's the white group from the 60s, and then Ike and Tina got a version of it. And then what is this man's name? They play his version of it in the movie, and that was the funkiest Land of a Thousand Dances. Hell, I'll just look it up. We're about to wrap up anyway. Wilson Pickett, thank you. Wilson Pickett. Yeah, they were getting funky on that movie. I might watch that while I'm traveling tomorrow. Watch me some Fern Gully. I need something happy to watch because the world be falling apart. Yeah. What did I think about Queen Latifah and Bessie? Oh, with Monique and them, that was good too. I remember watching that when it came out. A lot. There's been some good ones. They have some nuggets in the mix. So I've never seen Thurgood, Nettie. I'd have to watch that one. I've never seen that one. Lynn Whitfield and Josephine Baker. Yeah, she's good. She's good. I need to see the Mahalia one as well, Stella Avenger, because I know Danielle Brooks. I like her too, by the way. She has an excellent singing voice too. I've been following her since Orange Is the New Black. Al Wilson sings Show and Tell. I don't know where. I think it was the word Wilson. I knew it was something. So Al Wilson sings the Show and Tell. right? But then Wilson Pickett has his version of Land of a Thousand Dances. So I just had that Wilson name mixed up. Staple Singers had a documentary. It was very good, probably from the 70s or 80s. I'd have to watch that. But as far as speaking of documentaries, I've enjoyed a lot of these music docs that have come out. I really enjoyed Summer of Soul. I really enjoyed the Stax Records documentary. The Rick James one was really good too. I love a good doc. I for some reason I'm really leaning more towards documentaries and docuseries as opposed to biopics for a lot of these artists, just because there's been so many biopics that just drop the ball, and a lot of times you don't get a second chance to tell that story. Like Phyllis Hyman, that's one of my favorite people. I've been waiting for her story to be told for the longest. I wanted the biopic for Phyllis, which I think I'm leaning more towards a movie for her versus the documentary. But Phyllis, she needs something. All right, Jason, I hope you're watching. That's the guy that I think owns the rights. You do something, sir, please. Actually, it's crazy. Half these movies and stuff we've talked about, we've done videos on, so it's kind of cool. I'm like, you kind of forget you've been here for a minute. Like, yeah. All right, let me make sure I got everything I wanted to cover before we wind down or just chop it up here. Dun, 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 dun. Yes, we got everything. Lovely, beautiful. Somebody said, "Oh yeah, I was watching the Rick James one and recently didn't realize he died so soon after I'm Rick James." Yeah, that was like a few months later. Yeah. Somebody said Q-Tip and Questlove were in it. Is that you talking about Summer of Soul? Oh, Quincy Jones doc was really good. Y'all know Quincy was on. I was telling this story to somebody before. The name of this channel was almost called Calvin Quincy because when I was in high school, I had made my alter ego, and my alter ego was Calvin Quincy Montrevious, right? So it was Calvin because, again, my actual name is Michael, but I come from 3 generations of Michael. So I was like, oh, I need to stand out. So I started going by Calvin. And then Quincy at that time, because he was the music genius and everything, I was like, oh, and I like music. I'll use that. And then I don't know where the name Montrevious came from. It just sounded powerful. So then I used to use all 3 of those names, right? But when I made the channel, I didn't technically make a YouTube channel. I just had a Google account, or the YouTube channel is just called Calvin B 2006 or something. Like it was like a username or something I had for an email. And at the time, you couldn't change your YouTube name, so I think my channel was Calvin B 2006 until I don't know 6 or 7 years ago when YouTube finally let you change everything. So it was close. We're gonna be close to y'all calling me Calvin Quincy, but yeah. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, Michael was one of the most popular names for babies born in the 90s or in the late 80s. Somebody said Mariah Carey deserves a biopic. And the cool thing is too, once these artists always have like their book out or their autobiography, then it's easy to go ahead and build a movie or write a script off of it because you got the resource right there, right? That always helps. The Toni Braxton biopic was okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It was kind of just there. But it was on Lifetime, so that kind of changes the narrative a little bit too. I was gonna go and see the Bruce Springsteen one the other day, but I didn't have enough free time, so I was like, man, I'll check it out later. Did you see Viola Davis and Ma Rainey? Yep, I even did a review on it because I knew that was gonna be the last time we saw Chadwick, so I went to go see that one, and she did really good on that one, and she kind of got snubbed a bit. Yeah, somebody said D'Angelo. That would be one. I wonder how that would go. That'll be interesting because I think there's a lot about him we don't know. Like a lot we don't know about him. He kind of was private. No, the Tony one came out in 2013 or 2014. Came out a long time. God, time is flying. Yeah, it came out some years ago, like 10 years ago. Somebody said a complete unknown about Bob Dylan. I remember seeing the trailer for that. When did that come out? Was that this year? I can't remember. They said Mariah would never approve of a person playing her. All right. Yeah, that might be true. Said Fantasia was good. Fantasia was okay. I just think it came out too early. Like she had a biopic I think in the first 2 years of her career, I was like, wait, we got to get to know. I mean, it was more about her journey into fame, but I mean, a lot has happened in her life since she won American Idol. So I'm like, now this would be the time. We do need one for Donna Summer. I would love to hear about those years where she kind of got pushed out of the industry, and in the 80s where she was really fighting and clawing to try to, reclaim what was once there. I'd love to see that. I know she had a few mega hits in the 80s, like the This Time I Know It's For Real song. But my favorite song from her 80s by her was the Dinner with Gershwin, but it wasn't really a hit. Let's see. All right, let's kind of start winding down here. Anything else? Like I said, podcast is out. By the way, just so there's no confusion, whenever you see me upload or announce that a new podcast episode is out, it's not the same episode that's posted on the channel. The YouTube channel is 3 episodes behind the actual podcast because I try to get the podcast to do whatever it does on the streaming sites. So if you're trying to find, I mean, and that's on like Spotify, Apple. I'm actually getting ready to yank the SoundCloud account because I'm just paying, I think I got to pay $16 a month to keep the SoundCloud account. And I don't even be using it like that. And it's the least utilized place for people to listen to the podcast. I'm probably going to pull that one. But all the streaming platforms is on there. So again, and if you don't use any of those, you just want to be able to still view it or whatever, you can actually just, again, I'm pushing my website. You can always just go to the website. And then when you go to the website right here, Comedically Hard-Headed Podcast, and it will always have the most 4 recent episodes there. Oh, actually, okay, 6 recent episodes, excuse me. So this is the episode we're on right now. The Blowout, The Failed Retreat, No Pool, Empire Shenanigans, Broken Keys, and I'm out. But the YouTube channel just got the episode with Michelle Obama and the Kangaroo Court. So just so there's no confusion. All right, I'll hang for about 5 more minutes and then I'm gonna get off. So drop the questions and comments now before I wind it down. Let's see. Top music pick is either What's Love Got to Do with It or Ray, hands down. Okay. Somebody said I saw a TikTok video stating that. Oh wait, I saw a TikTok video stating that there's going to be one with all 4 of them. Wait, who's the 4? 4 biopics for who? Somebody said Oh, the Beatles are getting 4 separate ones. Oh, okay. 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 Actually, it would probably be very interesting. I would like to see a Prince pick. That would be interesting. That's going to be very interesting. I don't even know if his people would approve of that, but I'd rather get a doc for Prince than a movie. Because who's going to be able to really capture the essence of Prince in a movie and do it well? But I could be wrong. It could be somebody. Trying to think if there's anything else I'm supposed to be sharing with you guys. We need a Nat King Cole one. Okay. And okay. Yeah, the first Black television host, the music career. There was a period where he got a lot of smoke from Black folks because they felt that he wasn't down enough. And I remember there's the story where he does the show with the white folks and they start booing him because he's Black. And he's like, why are y'all booing me? I'm not even, doing all that civil rights stuff. What are y'all mad at me for? So, and then he gets his wake up call. That would actually be an interesting one to see the layers of growth. One Night in Miami wasn't bad. The one with that covered, it was like Malcolm X, Jim Brown, Sam Cooke, and Muhammad Ali. That one wasn't too bad either. I love the deep dive and dissection we did on that one. Let's see. Oh, okay. Lil I 3D, we're on the same page. And I hope I'm not being shady because she's saying I'm happy to see Maya fill in at the Brandy Monica tour. I'm hoping Maya's at my show. It's nothing against Money Long, but I came out of an era of Maya. I know Money, and hey, they can all be there, but personally, I'd have more fun at a Kelly Maya Brandy Monica show. So God willing, we'll get Maya for DC. But I hope Money is feeling better. But let's just let Maya stay on the tour. I mean, I already saw Maya a few weeks ago in New York, but still, Maya, she got some gems in that catalog that I think people sleep on. J Buggins 88 said, all my kids watch older movies with some. I have autistic kids. Some of those cartoons are too busy and too loud. My 17-year-old's favorite movie is Crybaby. I will say too, to that point, a lot of these newer movies that are for kids, they have, especially that flashing, sometimes they have so much stuff going on because definitely we've had children at the center that are on the spectrum or the term is no longer Asperger's syndrome. I forgot what the term is, but children that had that. And so sometimes there were certain things that didn't necessarily connect because it was either too busy or it's like super, super, super stimulating and distracting. So we'd have to even consider that kind of thing too. And then you want the kid to still have the same experience as everybody else because you don't want the kids to feel isolated or feel like they're not a part of the group. So like when I tell you there's so many things you have to consider when you work with people, that things that you never think of until you run into that moment. You're like, okay, now what do we do? Yeah, I always think of that. Like I remember when I first got at the center and we did the big Toys for Tots for the holiday season, and I totally forgot that all my kids who were Muslim didn't celebrate Christmas. I was like, oh shoot, okay. And so I had to kind of rearrange the idea where it's not just about holiday, but I'm just celebrating all the kids for being so great. So here's a toy, come get one, right? So you don't piss off or offend anybody. Let's see. Somebody said, I love Justice Anointed reparations. 2 20-year wars each cost $21,900,000,000 and a mess. Lots of lives lost for no reason. Right? All right, I'm about to get off in a second. There's a Prince impersonator in Las Vegas who Prince actually gave a nod to. He might be good. Is that the same guy that's in that show right now? Because I know there's a show called Purple Rain, but it's called Purple Rain, like REIGN. That's a theater show. Is that the same guy or is it somebody else? I don't know if you know that or not, but yeah. Let's see. Okay, somebody said Bernie Mac or Eddie Murphy. I religiously watch Adventures in Babysitting back then and Trading Places. Duran Bernard would be good as Prince. Hear me out. That could be interesting. I mean, they kind of have a similar frame because they're both like smaller framed and stuff. And that could be fun. I don't know. We have to see. Because he has the range. Like he has an amazing voice. So I know he'd be able to do all that falsetto stuff. And that could be one. He might be on something. Let's see. All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and get on off this so I can go to bed. I'm acting like I don't gotta get up early. But anyway, like I said, I'm not back until Monday, and y'all know for some reason, anytime I'm not home, something happens in the world. So if there's something crazy, just know you're not getting a immediate reaction out of me because I ain't here, right? When I get back, we'll get to it. So let's pray that nothing crazy happens unless it's something that we all ask for. But other than that, yeah. So anyway, stay locked in. There's a whole lot to be done and a whole lot going on. So let's not tap out. I know it's been a very, very rough 2025 for many of us. Lots of loss and stress and everything. But eventually this pendulum will swing the other way. We just got to ride this crap out and fight while we're riding, right? So anyway, I'm out. Stay safe, stay sane, mind your business so that you can age well. And I will see you either on the next live or the next video or whatever else that I put out because we're always doing something. And make sure to check out my culture trip video too. All right, see you guys.